Testing 1, 2. I'll wait till there's a confirmation it's working. Let me see. Yeah, it looks like it's working on my end. Okay. All right, yeah, I'll go. All right, let me record. Hello, this is the March video chat. There was no February one because I was basically overwhelmed with Stop Killing Game stuff. Unfortunately, that pattern has continued to some extent. I am embarrassed how long it's taking me to get out a regular video. Freeman's Mind is next. I really thought I'd be done with it by now. I'm mostly done with it. There's been this pattern of I'll start working on it, then urgent Stop Killing Game stuff comes up, and I think, oh, let's just take half an hour. Then no, it's more like 4 to 6 hours, and then it cascades and everything. But there's actually more news coming on Stop Killing Games that I'm not supposed to talk about yet. Probably next week. So unfortunately, that's probably gonna be the next video, and then Freeman's Mind right after that. The news that's coming, one thing's kind of predictable. Another thing I've known about for a while, but I haven't been able to talk about, and it might be a big deal. I won't know until near future. It's hard to say. Let's see. And then there's other smaller stuff that I also can't talk about with Stop Killing Games that's probably coming later. But, oh, there's some... Okay, I thought people were saying there's a problem. Can you tell us as to why you were not allowed to talk about it yet? Yeah, well, some of it's confidential. Yeah, it's mostly just confidential stuff related to it. But no, it'll probably mostly be out like in under a week for that. And that'll be on the main channel. Let's see. So yeah, Freeman's Mind's next after that, and then the follow-up Game Dungeon should be after that. So yeah, a few more announcements. For the Stop Killing Games website, I'm probably going to be retiring at some point, maybe near future, I'm not sure. What's going to happen is I'll intend to hand it over to the NGO, and then they'll handle it. I'm not sure everything they'll have on there. I hope in the future it'll have more kind of watchdog action with guides similar to what I did with the crew for future games. Like, I think one I really hope they can be prepared for is the New World shutdown in January, so that we'll be able to submit complaints to as many consumer agencies as are relevant, or that we can find the information on. They probably have other plans that go beyond even what I know about, which is fine. But yeah, if there's stuff on the Stop Killing Games website, you're welcome to back it up. But I think Wayback Machine has most of it. So, also on that note, at some point, there's probably going to be like as I understand, there's some internal code stuff that needs to change on the Accursed Farms website. And while we could have it if I really wanted to, I'm considering retiring the forums for Accursed Farms. I mean, when I started it, I was kind of using them more. I just haven't been active in them at all. And we've had to kind of beat back spam, and I'm not sure that many people are kind of using them regularly. It's the sort of thing where I'm not like, oh, never, but I'm just thinking about it. I don't, the thing is, if I was using them, or if the community was like really using them, I'd find a way to keep them up. But I'm not sure either of those is happening to a large extent. So, I mean, I think things have been mostly kind of displaced by Discord or Reddit, which I don't really consider great alternatives, but I've been so busy that like I'll just go with whatever the masses are going on, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's at some point that's happening. But yeah, if there are things, I'll see if the forums might be backed up on Wayback Machine also. But I'll look and to see if there's some sort of backup function for it. But you're welcome to back up anything on there. So just wanted to give people advance notice. This one, I guess these next parts aren't really like big announcements. It's more like kind of, I never mind. I never mind using the video chats to kind of have random promotions. I was invited to some webinar a week or two ago for another European Citizens Initiative. This was for Good Food for All. Yeah, I can give a link and give a link for it on the chat. And their goal, honestly, oh wow, I can't give a link on the. Oh, I'm not logged in on Twitch, even though I'm streaming. I guess I got logged out. All right. Well, maybe I won't give a link in the chat then. It'll be a link in the video description. It's goodfoodforall.eu. I'm promoting this personally, so not as a representative of Stop Killing Games. They're personally, this sounds like I can't think of a more worthy initiative, and it's almost it's kind of farcical that they're struggling to get more action done than pretty much almost any of the other initiatives. And I mean, as much as I care about the video game issue, I realize it's second fiddle to a lot of more important issues. I think their goal is, they have actually a bunch of goals on their site, but I think one of the primary ones is kind of assuming everyone has food. So, unfortunately, I think they have a tough road ahead of them on it, but they might have an advantage in that I think in their case, it makes a lot more sense not to have all of their signatures be digital. In our case, that was kind of I wouldn't say like only way, but the only, for the resources we had and for the demographic, it's the only practical way. Anyway, I'd recommend anyone in the EU who wants to go and sign it. But again, that's just my personal recommendation, not as the movement. Yeah, I had some input on the webinar, but I'm not sure how much help I was. I tried to warn them that we had kind of unique circumstances with our situation, but yeah, okay, somebody's linking to the chat linking to the initiative directly, so great. And also on that note, this one's not a citizens initiative. This one's keepandroidopen.org. So someone can put that in the chat if they want. This person reached out to me. Apparently, Google is changing things, I think, in October, so that you can't develop. Here, let me read off their site here. 1 second. Yeah, you can't develop on their app for the Android platform without first registering centrally with Google. They're saying this registration will involve paying a fee to them, agreeing to their terms and conditions, providing government identification, uploading evidence of the developer's private signing key. I don't know the significance of that either way. Listing all current and future application identifiers. It sounds like they're really trying to lock it down on. They're really trying to lock it down for just open development and make it less of an open platform. So, again, I'm skeptical about their odds, but I don't mind, putting it on here. Yeah, I replied to them. I was saying, I think part of the problem, it's almost like an antitrust law issue where Google, I checked, Google has 70% of the smartphone market. Well, that should be enough. I think in a lot of countries, including the United States, that's enough to trip up antitrust regulation. But governments haven't been so fond of enforcing that for a long time. So you kind of have the problem where you kind of have the problem where even if the law says this isn't lawful, if the government doesn't want to enforce it, then that's tricky. So anyway, I don't know how you would solve that, but making lots of noise sounds like it might help. They had an update saying that Google has some like exotic workaround to it that's still at their mercy that they could take away at any time. Like I was reading through the steps, and one of them is like wait for 24 hours. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, that doesn't sound like this. That sounds like a centrally controlled thing. If you're having to do that to basically just to, I might be misunderstanding it, but basically just to sideload something that isn't approved under the Google store. So, let's see. Yeah, I think that's it for main announcements. I had a couple topics I wanted to mention before I got to the main questions. Uh, yeah, one, the game High Guard. I think I don't know if they. I think they're due to shut down. And I noticed there was a lot of discourse on that where people were kind of confused. Like some were trying to make it look like I was a shill for a High Guard. And here's the. I mentioned in that video, gamers sometimes they overthink it. Here's the thing. Whether a company or a game is financially successful is a different issue than whether the game is destroyed for people that paid it. Those are two separate things. And there were a lot of comments I saw where people were just seeing them as the same thing. Like they hated High Guard, so therefore it should die. And the fact that we don't want the game to die means we support High Guard and we want it to do well, and like we're shills for that. Like they were conflating the two different concepts. I said online that I'm fine with people if they want to boycott any game they want. I mean that I don't have a horse in that race generally. I mean, whether a game's financially if a game was like, if it was a game I really liked, then yeah, I'd want them to be financially successful to hopefully, have a sequel or something similar in the future. But otherwise, I'm kind of laissez-faire on all that. Like, well, I guess see what people want to play, With High Guard specifically, I don't know a lot about it. It's supposed to be an Overwatch knockoff, and actually it was pointed out to me in the MSG Gaming discussion I had, where it's actually not. It's actually a pseudo synonym for Overwatch, as an over, high, watch, guard. So I was thinking, oh wow, that's incredibly cynical to be pushing it out. So that makes me think it's not a game that had like a lot of soul behind it, just a surface glance. However, the screenshots I saw of it looked like they were in pretty impressive art assets. It's the sort of thing I would be curious to at least, just walk around in, especially if it was in, stereoscopic or VR. But yeah, if people hate the game, we're not saying you can't hate the game. We're saying that if someone did put money into it, they should be entitled to keep it. Though in the case of High Guard, that may not apply. I'm not sure, because it was a free-to-play title, but it had microtransactions. And I know there's at least some refunding of the microtransactions. If it's total, then I'm not sure Stop Killing Games will be able to do anything, even if we had Lost Pass. Because if a company's refunding everyone, you can't really fault them too much. I mean, yeah, it sucks that, a game gets destroyed in all its forms, but if they're paying back everyone, I think, like with Concord, I think that's plenty of incentive for companies not to do that, even without any regulation. But most companies don't go into business to just purely lose money and not get any gross income, so I think that's an incentive in itself, that's kind of an anomaly. So, but if they didn't refund, if there were some people they didn't refund for microtransactions, then that's absolutely the sort of situation that would fall under Stop Killing Games. I mean, for the people who did pay money into it for something, because, the customer is still getting screwed at that point. Actually, I was going to make the case that, like, with Stop Killing Games, it's not like we can have legislation that only protects the good games. It's a full package. You can't really separate the two. And I was gonna say, you actually kind of want bad games to survive in some form as sort of a warning, you know. Like there's some famous ones in the past, like Extreme Paint Brawl, and I forget the name of it. There was that trucking game, the and oh, was it Truckers Extreme or something? I bet somebody knows the title in the chat. The one I'm thinking of. Oh, geez, there was another one I thought of, but oh yeah, well, actually, it's controversial. Yeah, Big Rigs. That sounds like it. It's controversial, but a lot of people think, from what I saw, I probably agree. Was it Sonic '06 was a not so good game? So, I and what was it? Who is it? The Angry Video Game Nerd has built his career on bad games surviving because if they were just destroying all their forums, he'd have nothing to talk about. So, you know, you can still you can still have an investment against a company or a game and want it to fail, but still not everyone one who did pay money for it getting screwed. So these are not incompatible concepts. So you can want a company or a game to fail, and you can want customers not getting screwed for the ones that you feel were dumb enough to buy it. Or hey, maybe they bought it knowing it's bad and want to make fun of it, you know? So yeah, Mystery Science Theater 3000 is another testament to that concept that, you know, you want the bad movies to survive too in some form. So so yeah, I just wanted to clear that up because I saw more than a few comments of people confused on that. Those are two separate things, whether the game or company is successful and whether the people who bought the game get to keep it. Two different things. You can okay, well, I'm repeating myself. The other thing I wanted to give commentary on, which probably isn't anything original, was because it's probably been discussed to hell now. Is the NVIDIA DLSS 5 reveal? Where for those that don't know, previous versions of DLSS are basically AI assisted upscaling, where they render the game at a lower resolution, then use AI to blow it up and try to preserve as many details as though it looked native. And it's a way to basically run games at a higher resolution than you would normally be able to for its power. DLSS 5, though, is something different. I mean, it's probably similar technology, but they're using it to essentially glow up the whole image and make it look like an AI filter, and it was not good in my opinion. Yeah. Here's my thought process. In the first 3 to 5 seconds of me seeing it, my immediate knee-jerk response was, "This is awful. I don't want it in anything." I've like, not only am I not interested in this, I think this is like a complete waste of resources. So, but I try not to be like so close-minded that like I'm maybe missing some angle of it. And I think I thought of one, but it may or may not work. I mean, thinking about it a little bit longer, the uncanny valley effect, where like faces just look kind of wrong, it's just on full display with this stuff. Like every shot they showed with faces, it just looked a little wrong. Like even the ones where like the models were like a little blockier and not as defined, that looked better and more natural than the AI glow up filter. And so I wouldn't want that for anything like with people's faces in them. But it made me think like, okay, well, wait a minute. What if it was like a game that you just had like no people, like Trackmania or Portal or something? I was thinking, well, it might make it look better, sort of, but then you're kind of you're kind of letting the AI take the wheel on the art direction then, because it changes so much. And I don't think I'd want that for most games I can think of. Like, that's the thing. If the game already has good art direction, this isn't valuable, in my opinion. And most big budget titles do. And I was kind of thinking you have to have one where like things are all a little ugly for maybe it could have application. But like I was thinking, I should have lost train of thought. Well, another thought I was the one potential use I could think of this is if it's even possible, because it might not be, it might change too much, it might not be able to kind of tune it, would be to like remove that tinting filters that I hate. So leave all the graphics proportionally the same. It's just that you're only messing with color. Like, so, but I don't know if the AI could do that or not, because I noticed the games in their display trailer that the one that looked like it benefited from it the most was Starfield. And even then, it had the uncanny valley effect, and I wouldn't want to use this on Starfield if I even had the capacity, or Starfield. But the Starfield's screenshots have always kind of, and footage have always kind of bugged me, because they have that ugly tinting in almost every shot I've seen of it, like where it's like a little brown or a little green, or I just hate tinting. Use colored light sources if you want a dominant color theme. It just looks so much better to me. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just going in completely the wrong direction. Thankfully, I'm not the only one who thinks that. But it seems like almost universally people kind of hated it. And then they found out later, I think, that who is it? Digital Foundry were running a demo of it on Oblivion Remastered, which is a game I think could use some tint help from the screenshots I saw. But they were saying that I think they had a 5090 running the main game, and then another 5090 just running the filters. So I'm thinking, man, that is so not worth it. It's a little frustrating because I can think of multiple uses for VR that maybe could use AI assistance that could help. Like try to have. I mean, there's stuff like this already, but if I had like NVIDIA tuning, it can maybe really supercharge it. Stuff that takes like any 2D image and basically converts it to 3D on the fly. Like there's a software called Depth Anything that does that, and it's not bad. But like if I could take like any 2D game and have it look kind of okay in 3D for VR, that would be amazing. But the thing is, VR converting non-VR games to VR is a very niche interest and not really worth it for a giant company like NVIDIA. So I can understand why they don't. I just kind of wish I wish the option was there, or maybe there could be like some injector to have more games like kind of support foveated rendering or something to give you a speed boost like that. But yeah, I think for VR, stuff like frame generation, like it depends. Like sometimes it can't be used just because, well, one, it's meant to go to the monitor and not the VR device, but like the latency just from the frame generation can kind of make you sick because it's so sensitive for that. But oh yeah, that was the other thing. I rewatched the NVIDIA trailer for the DLSS 5 in 4K. Just I was curious about like the differences, and I was seeing a couple things. Like on the Resident Evil Requiem shot, they had, first off, I was seeing some kind of blobby noise added. I mean, it was subtle. It was definitely subtle, but like in the shot, it was raining, and in the original, you can kind of see it looks about right, but then in the background, it's like it's kind of morphing together a little bit. And also, I noticed the background buildings, like the brickwork, or there was like engraving on this wooden beam, that was like softer and a little bit muddier on the AI enhanced shot. So it's actually reducing graphics quality in some areas, and ones that I would care about. So yeah, it's just I'm glad the internet's pushing back on that. It's not a good use of AI, in my opinion, at all. I mean, I could see some really fringe cases where somebody might want it. Yeah, actually, yeah, but it's so demanding, though, it wouldn't be worth it. But, I've seen a few games where the lighting, like, never looks quite right to me. Like broad daylight. Like, And these are games that can have good art direction otherwise. Like, okay, two I can think of off the top of my head are City Skylines, or maybe City Skylines 2. Like, a lot of the daylight shots I've seen, the lighting never looks quite right. Like, that's the sort of thing that looks like it could use some sort of enhancement. And actually, I think I remember, because it was used for benchmarking at the time. I think for what I've seen of Final Fantasy 15, I think kind of had that look where it's like it's real bright and sunny, so it should be kind of blasting you, but instead it looks kind of muted in an unnatural way or something. So, yeah, but you could probably. I mean, yeah, you have stuff like reshade to enhance it, but it's rare that I've seen a game that has lighting that looks tinted or off be like totally fixed through reshade. So it's they're saying it looks like it's running about a quarter of the frame rate with DLSS on. Yeah, maybe. I mean they could. I mean, if they have two 5090s, I'm sure they can run at least some games at full speed. But the problem is, it's like the end destination isn't really where you want to go, and you could tell the Resident Evil game. It looks like it's a AAA game. I mean, they have serious art assets in there and designers. That this is not a game that really needs help with the enhancing the visuals there. So, again, the only edge cases would be stuff where the lighting just looks wrong. But even then, the uncanny valley effect, I would just not want that. I wouldn't want that in any game I played. So it's anyway. I just wanted to talk about that. I'm glad there's pushback. Okay, I should get to the submitted questions. They started off with kind of random ones, so I'm assuming there's nothing too important this time. Let me find the. Okay. Ross, so I was wondering, what are your feelings towards endings where it's left to the audience interpretation? Do you prefer stories where the ending is clear cut, or where they are left unambiguous? And their two examples would be Inception, where it's unclear whether he's still in a dream or not, and The Ninth Gate, where it's unknown if Johnny Depp's character has truly opened the gates of hell by the end. Okay, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I actually didn't remember The Ninth Gate having an ambiguous ending. I remember him making it to hell at the end. Like you see just like, they didn't expand on it, but you see him kind of walking towards this light and the mysterious music's playing, and at least that's what I remembered. But maybe I'm incorrect on that. Inception, I remember it being more controversial. I mean, I think it can go either way. I mean, it just depends. I think ambiguous endings are fine if they're done well. I even have one out of my own videos. Civil Protection Morning Patrol. At the very end, the hound eye runs up to Mike again, starts charging him. Well, I timed it so that so it wasn't clear which was going to happen. He's pointing the gun right at it at the time it's ready to blow at him again. So I left it to the viewer interpretation as to does Mike pull the shot off in time or not. So I thought that was a great way to end it. So it's not really that I prefer one or the other. It's just they can both be good, defined endings versus ones that make you wonder, I think when ambiguous endings are bad, or when it's a story that's really kind of made you want answers by the end of it, and then they're still not giving you much of anything. So I'm trying to think of an example, because Still Life sort of halfway does that, but you do get to you get to shoot the murderer and he goes into the river, so there's some satisfaction there, but they kind of wrote themselves into a corner there. But I know there's that was well, I kind of I kind of remember feeling that way a little bit, like they should have explained more for what was it, Deathloop, the game. I played through that, and I don't know, the ending. It was, well, there's multiple endings, but they weren't satisfying to me. Like I feel like they were building up an awful lot that you don't need to explain everything, but they needed to explain more than they did, in my opinion. Uh, let's see, what's another one? Do you think of any games or movies where like the ending's kind of unsatisfactory based on how much they've built up? So yeah, it depends, but it can be valuable. I mean, it can go either way, but oh, somebody's saying the Golden Loop patch dramatically expands. Oh, I didn't realize they pat. Damn it, we have another one. Another game where you're not getting the ending on release. You gotta wait for the. I guess maybe it's not DLC. I had no idea there was a patch of it that expanded on the ending of it. Yeah, but, what was it? BioShock Infinite did that too. I actually haven't. I actually haven't seen anything past the original ending to BioShock Infinite. That's a game I intend to replay at some point in VR because I think I'm sure there's mods for it for stereoscopic, but I think there might be a full VR mod or maybe like an inject. Like they had a re-release of it and it was free on Epic at one point. If I'm not sure what version of the Unreal Engine the re-release uses. If it's 4 or above, then it should be able to have pretty much close to native VR support. So, I mean, for sure, BioShock Infinite is for sure a game I would want to see in VR, just from the setting. Yeah, so yeah, I did not know there was an expanded ending of Deathloop. That makes me more interested now. So. Because yeah, I thought the game was pretty solid, but it's just that part. They built it up. They built up too much intrigue to give you the crumbs that they did at the end. So, um, what's the approximate ETA in the follow-up episode? I'm hesitant to say because I keep screwing up my time estimates. I think sometime April. That's my estimate, but we'll see. We'll see if I'm being too ambitious or more surprise things come out when you stop killing games. I think after next month, my involvement gets to wind down a whole lot, but we'll see. Oh yeah, Ross, at the end of the Brussels press conference, you received a round of applause. When, if ever, was the last time you experienced that? Well, literally the day before, twice, because we had just some dinner thing that they arranged, and everybody clapped. I was like, okay. And then later they did it again during the dinner. It's like, yeah, all right, you guys didn't see. I'm not about this the first time. And then it happened the next day at the meeting. I mean, yeah, what was going through my head during that? I mean, yeah, I don't really like it, but we're celebrating victories prematurely is the way I look at it. I mean, I think our odds are getting ever better, and I do think we probably are going to win this in the long term, but it may not be through the route of new regulation, in which case all that they're clapping for isn't amounting to anything. So it's it's just it's two things. One, we don't have a victory yet, so don't clap prematurely. And the second is it's kind of like trying to elevate me. Look, this has involved so many people at this point. I don't think that's. It focuses our attention in the wrong direction. Is the way I look at it. I mean, we needed literally millions to get the signatures, and I mean even without that, just like a lot of the action we're having in France, that's because of French volunteers that also assisted with it. And we have volunteers for like helping with finding. Well, actually, I did a lot of the work on the guides, but there was a lot of research that led up to that with like the European consumer center network stuff. That involved a lot of volunteers actually going and calling them in their respective country, to get the information, that to find out that was a dead end. I mean, we had somebody who was making the website for it, and somebody who was kind of overseeing it. I mean, that was early on. And with the Citizens Initiative, there's the official organizers that are doing tons. Some of them are doing tons of work, and we're getting the legal help. So, I mean, this is much more of a team effort. So, just like, oh yeah, let's say I'm so great. That just it doesn't accomplish anything. Is the way I look at it. So, yeah, no, I didn't really care for it. But they're saying the last time I received a round of applause, it's possible it's happened, but I can't remember any prior to that. So, but that's not really anything that drives me. So, again, I really am happy for others to kind of take the reins on Stop Killing Games. I've said before, it feels like I drew the short straw. Either I did it or else nobody was going to for getting it off the ground. So, but again, we don't have a win yet, but the odds are getting better the more it goes on. So, wow, I guess I didn't see this one. They had a dream a few weeks ago where I did a live stream explaining that a bunch of clones of yourself randomly appeared one day. They were extremely protective of you, like the Secret Service for the president. It got to the point where they were killing people that would even remotely come near you or present a threat to you, and you weren't sure what to do about it. I offered to help by sequencing your DNA and comparing it to the clones to make an idea of where they came from. And you agreed to it, but warned me that the clones would probably try to kill me. So I tried to extract DNA from some tissue samples of you and the clones, but the whole time a bunch of Ross clones kept popping out of doors and windows to try and shoot me, and they eventually killed me. I have to ask, did you do anything supernatural that could have caused this vision to appear in my head? No. Actually, my main thought hearing this is like, this is a pretty solid concept for a movie or a game. Just like your dream right there, especially the complications where the clones are drifting but are fanatically loyal to the point where it's detrimental. As it stands, I cannot confirm that you aren't a warlock and that you aren't collaborating with warlocks in some ways. Well, it's sometimes like warlock characters in RPGs, but that's about it. Yeah, and then there was a comment below that that I was going to respond to. They're saying, I thought if you died in real life, you died in your dreams. Well, not under Lovecraft. That he addresses that exact concept. And what was it? What was it? The Dream Quest of, what's his name? Unknown Kadath. Yeah, if you haven't read that, that's an interesting high fantasy story. I think if I recall, that predates Tolkien, and it's very imaginative, like that story. And at one point, his body does die, and he just continues on in the dream world. So, from what I remember, but no, that sounds like a solid story concept. What your dream there? There's. It's on my list. I don't know if I put it on the website yet, but one of the games I eventually want to check out is the Altars. I don't know much about it other than it's sci-fi and it's a whole bunch of clones working on some moon base or something. It was probably at least inspired by that Moon movie, but I don't know. I'm kind of in the dark on the rest of it, and I kind of want to be, kind of going blind. It looked like it was. It looked like it was my kind of premise. Might go to interesting places. But yeah, I mean, with that scenario, the clones wouldn't really be clones. They would be kind of mimics, or clones with deviations. Because if they were exact clones of me, we would kind of all treat each other the same, and I wouldn't consider I would consider the clones basically me, because they would have all my memories. So so what if they're the clone? I'm in the original. Like, so what? We act the same. We have all the same abilities. We're the same physiology. There's no difference. So what if I was the one who was here first? From his perspective, he was the one there first too, and it's just some outside distinction, making it's just some outside information saying, "Oh no, you're actually the copy." Well, so what? You know, there are plenty, especially digitally, there are plenty of copies or mass-produced things that are just as good as the original. So what does it even matter if it's not the original then? Usually the original only matters if the copy is flawed, so in some way. Because if it's an exact copy, then, because or even not exact, but like functionally. Because I was thinking, a CPU, yeah, they're not literally exact, but they're really damn close, enough that they all run the same way, and they're copies. So, let's see. But yeah, I'm not up to any supernatural stuff. In my free time, I've been screwing around more with getting old games working in VR lately. So it's, I guess you could say it's witchcraft of a sort, but not particularly black magic. Yeah, chat, feel free to submit answers to this one. If you could spend a month in any game world, which one would you choose? You have some supplies and stuff to keep you relatively safe. Well, okay, yeah, they're going into detail. A supply of MREs, doctor with medical supplies, a well-armed security guard, translator. So safety or scarcity is not an issue. Would your choice be different if you were without any supplies or safety? Yeah, I think so. It'd be different. Well, I was thinking if I could go, if I'm there for a month, that means I'm probably, let's assume I'm going there a month and I'm never coming back. So I'm going there to get the experience, but it's no place I'd want to live. So in that case, I would probably want to go for the most exotic region I could and has most variety. That's not just like pure madness. And I'm, I, I could see myself coming up with a better answer later. But just off the top of my head, I think I might go for Armed and Delirious. Because I know I said just not Maximum Madness. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but there's crazier stuff out there than Armed and Delirious. It's extremely surreal and exotic. And it wouldn't exactly be my favorite place, but it's so exotic that I would just, that would be an experience. Going from one small planet to another and just going in these different labyrinth, what's the word? Byzantine areas. That, yeah, off the top of my head, that one would be an experience. But I'm sure there's some better ones. But because I figured this, like, it's not a place I'd want to live. Like, I wouldn't want to live at that universe. But if I'm just having the full tour for a month, because again, I want the variety. Because if I'm there a full month, I'm going to be able to see a lot. So, yeah, actually, when I went to Brussels, okay, that's the next question. Oh, okay, I didn't even realize it was on there. Okay, so yeah, I guess let's see what the chat's saying. Well, somebody says Morrowind for them. Morrowind seems like kind of barren for a lot of it. I'm surprised they picked that one. Somebody's saying Far Cry 3. That one's also, I guess with Far Cry 3, yeah, that could be more of like an adrenaline rush because, I mean, because even with a lot of like, with an armed security, transport, and supplies, you're still incurring some risk going to Far Cry 3. So I guess you could have if you wanted like a tropical adrenaline adventure, then yeah, that I could see doing that for Far Cry 3 though. Though I feel like if you're going to go to Far Cry 3, you might as well go to Far Cry. I mean, to me, that's the better game in terms of like the setting because I remember there being thicker jungle and you also have the mutants to worry about. So it could be more exotic. Okay, somebody's saying without safety, then Pokemon. Yeah, okay, I could see you exploring a lot. What are okay? So without safety, I didn't see that in the question earlier. Someplace that's probably a game I'm not even that familiar with because my impulse is to say some sort of 4X space game where you can visit a bunch of different worlds, but there are regions that are all relatively civilized, and you can have dependable space transport, that sort of thing. So I could maybe visit a few planets in my course. I'm not sure which game would be the best for that, which is like the most exotic, but still has like it doesn't mean the whole universe is safe, but it still has like a safety factor to it. I'd have to think about ones that I'm like more familiar with for one lore. Like, oh yeah, I definitely want to visit that, even if I'm on my own. Uh, let's see okay. One I wouldn't mind some of these with like their kind of like futuristic worlds. One that was kind of interesting was The Longest Journey, which I still need to finish. But what I saw of it made it look like I wouldn't mind seeing that world, and it looks safe enough. What are some other ones? Yeah, somebody's saying Myst is pretty. As I understand it, Myst is less safe than it looks. Like some of the worlds are unstable, from what I remember. Okay, I haven't played Abiotic Factor, but yeah, I could. From what little I've seen, that seems like that'd be a good choice. Let's see. That was the most. Somebody's saying Civilization. Well, that's kind of. I mean, I guess you can go back to the past, but that's or remix of the past, but that one's less exotic compared to a lot of other games. But all right. Okay, yeah. So they're saying, how was your experience in Brussels last month? Anything noteworthy or interesting that happened that you encountered or places you visited? Did Magda go with you? Magda did go with me, though she was terrified of the flight. That was pretty rough for her. Yeah, I tried to. I figured for all I knew, I was never coming back. So I tried to see as much as I possibly could. I walked for the time I was there. I think I walked at least 20, 25 miles total. I mean, across the span of a few days. It not like all the same day. Um, I pretty much saw almost everything in the city center, and it's actually the most dense. The city center was probably the most area where there's lots of things there. I don't think I've ever seen a density of it that large, and I've been to New York City and walked all around there too, because you would have like a restaurant, then a museum, then like a casino, then a hardware store, then like it almost felt like it was something out of a video game hub, like where you have all these areas you go through to upgrade your armor or to get skill skill power ups or something, and they have them all in a close area. It was like that, and it just kept going for aspects of it, and there were distinctions too. Yeah, well, I learned Brussels is also a city of haves and have-nots. In walking around, there were some places that got immediately shadier. Like I was talking to Josh Strafe Hayes about it. There were some areas where we came off at like the northern train station, one side of it, it was extremely shady. There was open drug use, prostitution, uh what there but the part see I don't really care so much about people just being more wild like that, but there was an obvious kind of like criminal intent for the way some were acting, like Magda called them like a lot of half malicious looks, and they were kind of predatory. It kind of reminded me of, if you've ever played the beginning of Resident Evil 5, before there's any, actual conflict, you're walking through this village and everybody's giving you these looks and there's some violence going on. And you could tell this is extremely unsafe. Parts of it kind of felt like that. So there's kind of these invisible lines in the city where you cross over from the zone that some are much more safe than others. Yeah, and throughout my walking, was it on Sunday morning? It was either around 7 or 8 in the morning because I was just sort of circumnavigating the city center. The what on the well, I encountered two separate people at two different points that were shouting crazy, that were of crazy people shouting. Uh, the they both shouted at me, but I kept walking, so it didn't really matter. I had a pretty good pace going, and also people are gonna think I'm making this up, but I'm not. Uh, I walked by in this area where there was like a lot of auto shop stuff. There was a guy who was lock picking a lock to a store on the street, and who he was wearing a balaclava, so all he could see were his eyes. He just gave me like a super quick look, and then just went back to it, and I didn't bother him. So I'm figuring, well, I guess there's a small chance he's doing this legitimately, but even if it's not, like, what, this isn't, I'm just a tourist. I don't know what's going on here. So yeah, there was some guy just picking a lock just right out there on the sidewalk. Again, it was Sunday morning, like 7 or 8. As for the nicer parts of Brussels, again, I'm not the most worldly traveler, but for cities I have been, it's probably the nicest looking city I've ever been to in terms of architecture. There's art just all over the place, like built into the buildings. And then they have the tourist areas, and the most impressive spot I saw was these giant arches, and there are pictures of it, and I don't know what it is, but I looked at the pictures afterwards. The pictures do not convey how huge it is. It looks like a boss. It feels like a boss area out of a fantasy game. It's just enormous, and then combining that with this kind of, like 18th century French architecture, French style architecture, it looked amazing. That same for like the palaces that they had, or there were lots of different, just fantastic looking areas. It's Magda, who has been to Paris, I haven't, said it reminded her a lot of Paris, except she said like the dimensions were wrong, but other than that, it reminded her so much of Paris, apparently. She said the buildings were taller and wider, but that was about it. So yeah, I feel like I saw a lot. I mean, there were lots of impressive statues. I'm being kind of vague here. I mean, I could probably list off like 20 if I knew the names of everything I saw, of 20 different things of note. But yeah, multiple impressive palaces, all kinds of fantastic statues and arches, though not like the enormous one. Let's see, what was this, like the second most impressive thing? I guess probably one of the palaces. But does she join you on the recent Stop Killing Games trips? Yes, and she was actually in the room for that conference, but she was shy about being on camera. So anytime there was a photo, she made sure to get out the way, or filming and that sort of thing, or kind of hide, so she didn't want to be seen on it. But Simoneki, I don't know what that means. Sorry. If there was a major tourist attraction anywhere in the vicinity of the city center, I almost certainly saw it from walking through there. I did see next to European Parliament, there were these sculptures and sort of this mini garden area, and they were all of ostriches with their heads in the sand. So I thought that like this might have been a commentary maybe on EU Parliament. I'm not sure. Yeah. Also, I thought that looked a little tacky at the parliamentary building. That in front of it, they had a statue of a woman who was like standing triumphantly over a man, which I mean that looked fine, but then she was holding up the euro symbol, like like the currency, not like not like the EU flag or something, but just holding up the currency. And I was thinking that looks a little tacky. It's like we're glorifying the euro as a domination, but uh, what are some other things in Brussels? Oh yeah, I mean this is to be expected, but there was clearly the highest density of chocolatiers and waffle vendors that I had seen anywhere in my life, for sure. I mean, like it was almost like a cluster bomb because, like, in the heart of the city center, there's like there's like two or three every block, every direction. Like it's just constant. Like I'm actually, it makes me curious. Maybe somebody's. How many chocolatiers are there in Brussels? Let's see if the. Let's see what the answer. Because there's easily over 100. Okay, this. I've learned to sort of never trust the Google AI. Okay, yeah, here we go. There are apparently there are 755 chocolate shops or specialized chocolate shops in. Oh no, that's in Belgium. Okay, well that. Okay, so that doesn't count then. I mean, that's all in Belgium. So that's a much. That's kind of. I would estimate easily there's over 100 in Brussels alone. So. Yeah, in fact, that kind of stung my budget a little bit because Magda. I don't think it might be. At one point, we met up with Josh Strife Hayes and his partner, and Magda started talking to her, and then she was like had come there for the chocolate, and she had done research on it and knew like which one she really wanted to go to. So we were all kind of walking together, but they went into the chocolate shop, so I knew I was going to get hammered having to pay for some of the chocolate there. Because so she was an enabler. I mean, I knew Magda was going to buy some anyway, but I spent more than I wanted to on chocolate, but I knew that was kind of that's kind of unavoidable. Things like that when you're married. That if your partner's like obsessed on something, if you're earning the money, you're gonna have to finance it to some extent. But yeah, there was. I actually didn't have any sweets prior to any of the meetings because I knew that might make my skin screw up, and also that scrambles my thinking. And I knew I needed to, like, I would not have done as good a job as I did for the press conference thing if I had been on sweets. I would have. You've probably seen in these chats where I have these moments where I completely forget what I was talking about. That can happen anyway, but that's definitely worse if I'm on sugar. So I did try a waffle afterwards, and it was like way too sweet for me. It was just like overpowering. So yeah, I can't say I care for. I guess you can blame it on me being American. I would rather have a Waffle House, what Waffle House considers a Belgian waffle than like the actual Belgian waffle because they're a lot less sweet for a Waffle House style waffle. Because I really do like those, Yeah, so yeah, maybe now I've pissed off everybody in Belgium. But let's see. Yeah, it's. I will say, seeing Brussels, it made me wish every city did this sort of thing with the art, with just the sheer amount of art concentration built into the architecture itself. Like, because that would be Yeah, I remember complaining about that sort of thing in the Zany Golf episode, where I wanted, just more art everywhere. Brussels kind of delivers on that. So, okay, somebody's saying I just tasted Brussels waffles. The superior sweet Belgian waffles are the Liege variant. Well, compared to American style Belgian waffles, what Americans call Belgian waffles, they're actually not that sweet. I mean, there's like a little bit, but not that much at all. It's more like just like a really fluffy unsweetened waffle. Well, I say unsweetened. There's obviously like a little bit of it, but it's. I'm not sure sweetening the waffle itself helps. From adding fruit and or whipped cream or whatever on top of it goes well with that. This will become sort of like a sweet sandwich kind of thing. But it was interesting. I felt like oh yeah, there was another building. I think, was it the Palace of Justice, where I saw the back of it. I mean, I saw both, but the back of it was actually really impressive. It looked like something out of a fantasy movie, to be honest. Just lots of just huge decorative architecture. So I love that about it. There was a Ferris wheel, but I didn't get to go on it, but I walked by it. Did you see how Brussels sprouts were made? No, I did not, but I've seen pictures of that. It looks kind of neat. For someone who hasn't seen them grown naturally, that they look almost like little alien pods. But yeah, I'm trying to think. There's some other stories. Well, yeah, I actually, during my walking just everywhere during that time, I'm probably saved a day for one random lady where I was walking by and I heard like this clank, and I looked by and there was this pile of keys on there. And these were not like normal keys. These were like they're more like janitor keys, where, you have a bunch on there and like a bigger key ring. There were at least 10 or 15 on them. And she was walking off and I didn't know what was going on. So I grabbed them. I went up saying, "Excuse me." And she was ignoring me. I think either because her headphones blocked it out or because she thought I was just some creep, trying to stalk her or something. So what I did is I held the keys out in front of her, and then she immediately went, "Oh!" And she was clearly a native French speaker. I don't remember what she said. I know a little bit of French. Yeah, I kept having to stop myself from saying phrases in Polish instead of French. So, say merci instead of dziękuję, and je ne parle pas français, pardon. I know from French numbers, that sort of thing. So, but I don't speak French, but I know like a few basic phrases in French. So I don't know what happened, but I just handed them to her. She took them, and I walked off and continued. But I get the feeling if she had lost those keys, that probably would have been bad news, because there were like 10 or 15 on a key ring. So that seemed like more than just house keys, What else? Man, I saw so much, because there was like the business district and the tourist district, and then like the very shady district. Let's see. I really walked. Well, it was kind of neat walking in the morning. That there was a small army of street cleaners in the morning. Like it was just everywhere from previously, so you can tell they have a budget for that. But let's see. I'm drawing blanks, but I think that was all the most interesting stuff. I was really just me walking when I wasn't doing the presentation. That was really just kind of walking around everywhere. We went this thing that Magda scheduled. We got tickets to this thing called Museum of Realities, or Museum of Infinite Realities. And the name sold me, so I went in blind on it, though. It wasn't really my kind of thing. It was more of like a performance art thing where they they were just trying to figure out what animal you are and ask these personality questions that had these dances and stuff. So yeah, I mean, even though it was Brussels, I think my take on it was a little too French for my taste, even though it was Belgium. Uh, but like if you think of like stereotypical like French avant-garde thing, it was more like that. But it killed time. But we both went to that. Uh, we went to this museum of optical illusions, but there were one or two neat parts. But it's mostly the sort of thing that'd be better as a kid because there were, like, I'd say at least half the exhibits are things I had already seen before. But if you were a kid, it'd seem a lot more fresh. So yeah, oh yeah, I can mention the Stop Killing Games thing. Again, I didn't go to the main meeting, and then there were issues with getting some people in there. There was actually one or two people who were supposed to get in there that didn't because there was some screw up about that. But during the meeting, it was never actually communicated to me what I'm supposed to be talking about. I asked a few times, and I literally did not know until basically I took Josh started doing the introduction, and then I figured, okay, so this is just kind of like a basic sort of general overview of things, talking about problems. So I basically figured out what I was supposed to be talking about as Josh started talking. Like, he starts at the beginning and then I show up. So I had no clue what I was going to say. I mean, so I pretty much improvised the whole thing until we started getting actual questions. So that was a little bit last minute, but in my eyes, that part didn't even matter. The most important part was getting Alberto, the law professor, in the room talking to the EU Commission. Like in my eyes, that was the single most important part. That to have a law professor explaining there's a real problem with what's going on right now. This is the way the companies are operating is not lawful. So, but oh yeah, it might still be there if somebody is in Brussels and wants to go see it. By the Parliament building, I saw graffiti that said "Transformers Lives Matter." It's off to if it's still there, if they haven't cleaned it or something, it's off to the right of like the main building on the right. So that kind of made me laugh seeing that there. Yeah, so if you walk off to the right, I forget if it was like by the main building or like a part behind it, but somewhere around there. What's another thing? Yeah, I guess I can't think of too much else. Just walking by lots. Oh yeah, I remember thinking that I kind of wish there would be a big game, big open world game that does take place in Brussels. So maybe something like the Watchdog series, but I guess that might not be Ubisoft's favorite city the way things are heading. So, but yeah, it's just a city that's just jam packed with architectural art. That it would be a fantastic setting for places. Oh, so okay, well I can answer this. So if I understand Stop Killing Games' current status, they're basically dragging their feet on whether they plan to do anything. Well, I mean, it's hard to say. Okay, yeah, somebody's saying, yeah, the commission has until July 27th to respond. There's the commission, and there's the EU Parliament, and there's the EU Council. So again, and then that goes to the tri mission later. So even if one is kind of dragging their feet, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of premature to say that. It may not even matter. We'll have to. It gets complex. So there's a lot of moving wheels for this whole thing. All right, I should just get back to the regular questions. that's all I can think of for what happened. Oh yeah, Magda noticed there were no. She didn't see any stray cats, which kind of made her disappointed. Oh yeah, and she went to a cat cafe, and she thought the owner. She thought it was pretty shady. She said she thought the cats were nice, but the owner there and the environment and everything, it felt pretty shady to her. But let's see the what else. Yeah, oh, and I got a reminder of prices outside of Poland. So I took a hit on that, but I tried to be as frugal as I could. But oh yeah, well, I guess that was another sort of minor story. I figured out the metro relatively easily once I got there, but taking the train from the airport to the city center, that was baffling. We probably wasted half an hour just trying to figure out how it worked to get on the right train. Like I finally figured it out by the end, and that's they would give the yeah, I finally found out like a schedule of like all the stops, and they would give the times. But what you had to learn was that the times on the schedule like had almost nothing to do with like the active times that were occurring. See, now I've confused myself again. But we got on the right train, but man, it was kind of suspenseful trying to figure it out. But meanwhile, the metro couldn't be easier to figure out. Like so, like they even have maps and like showing which direction each subway was coming by. So all right. Someone wants to know what's your Taco Bell order. They need to know now. Well, it's been a long time since I had Taco Bell, but I guess my favorite were like the Mexican pizzas that they had. I usually have that or like a hard taco. The and I remember, and my story about Taco Bell is I remember once I might have told this before. I was eating there and like part of the hard shell got kind of I guess I took too big a bite and it got kind of sort of caught in my throat and I was thinking and I remember thinking like oh that like if I have to, I'm not going to choke because I can just cough and just spit all of this up immediately. But I really want to try to not do that to cause a scene. And it was kind of painful, but I did manage to finally kind of dissolve it and sort of maneuver it around so I was able to swallow it and be okay. And I remember having the thought later on another Taco Bell visit where they hadn't cleaned up much and it was just kind of filthy there. And I was thinking, you know what? I made the wrong call. I should have saved myself the pain, just spit it all out and just not worried about it. Because coming at it at a later date, I'm not sure people would have even noticed. So there weren't that many people there at the time, but yeah, there was something else I would eat sometimes, but I forget which one. But yeah, Mexican pizza was my favorite from Taco Bell. The Taco Bell yeah, I think I mentioned that before when I was living in LA that like I couldn't understand how Taco Bells could survive out there because there were so many Mexican food options. Like there was classier Mexican, there was cheap and quick fast food Mexican, there stuff in between. Like and it's all way more flavorful than anything from Taco Bell. So it baffled me that like how do they even survive as a business? And what the locals told me was that it's exotic to Mexicans. So for people who are from Mexico or grew up having Mexican food, like Taco Bell's exotic, like because it's it's this weird kind of alien version of Mexican food. So I guess Mexicans like Taco Bell for the novelty in LA because it's not like normal Mexican food. What game would you consider perfect? As in, it tells its own story well, where the game mechanics, game setting, and characters fit well within its own story, and everything in the end feels like it all fit perfectly together or close to it. It's hard for me to think of any. I mean, actually, I'm not the only one who feels this way. I remember there was an old Angry Joe episode where he said something similar, where like he can always find something that could be better in like any game. But you're saying where it all just fits together perfectly. I guess. Well, okay, I'm real. It's been a long time since I played it. It could be just like I'm more biased because I played it when I was younger. I remember being very satisfied with Resident Evil 2, the original. Um, there, see, I kind of feel that way a little bit like about Supreme Commander, but Supreme Commander has some things I really would change about the gameplay. In that, one, like your cheap units become a lot less worth it as you go on. So it'd be great if they still maintain some functionality. And plus, when they expanded the map, that could just screw you. Like that you were completely unprepared for what comes next. And I kind of don't like that in strategy games where you can have a. Well, okay, yeah. Well, that's another one. StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty is really damn good, but I feel like it got a little bit stupid with the story for parts of it. But the rest of it is incredibly satisfying. So that one's up there. Feel free to put suggestions in the chat for others, for games that like you feel like they just nail. Well, hey, I mentioned Puzzle Agent. I mean, it's smaller in scope than a lot of games, but man, I can't. Yeah, I can't think of much of a flaw of anything in it. Yeah, somebody's saying Super Metroid Symphony of the Night. Well, Symphony of the Night's a little bit different because you can easily miss half the game and not know it for Symphony of the Night. I mean, probably not now with the internet, but so that's kind of like, on one hand, that's awesome that you can do that, but on the other hand, it's like, well, that's mixed feelings about that. Let's see, but you're right. Symphony of the Night's well, Symphony of the Night. I mean, the voice acting is so cheesy. It's like so cheesy. It's good though. Super Metroid's really good. That's true. Yeah, that's true. It has like extremely good pacing and everything. Okay, somebody's saying Warcraft 3. Warcraft 3. I don't know. It's like I might be too biased coming from the earlier Warcrafts, where like it had a tonal shift and it had a gameplay shift. Hey, I think I mentioned it before. You know who isn't the biggest fan of Warcraft 3? Professional strategy game players, like a lot of South Koreans. What they don't like about it are the cooldowns. As I understand it, that they like to be able, like if they have a special ability, they like to be able to just burn through their mana if they need to, and just spam everything in that moment. And Warcraft 3 kind of blocks it. So I'm saying Warcraft 3 has the best story. I don't know. I kind of liked it more when the orcs were just these bloodthirsty savages and invaders, and they tried to give them like an image facelift, making them more like noble and getting rid of the demonic magic. There was definitely an art tone shift between 2 and 3 also, where 1 and 2 were kind of on the heels of Warhammer. Just a little more soften the edges, I guess. But in 3, they kind of made it more cartoonish, and they continued on the World of Warcraft, and I wasn't as much of a fan of that. But it made it all look a little goofier. I think the music in 3 is less distinct than 2. 2 has a lot of like kind of memorable tracks, I think. 3, they're doing that thing where it's like in between something that's real distinctive versus something like what Invisible War was doing, where it's just really ambient and sounds like it's in the next room. 3's music sounds like a little bit in between there. Yeah, somebody's saying Warcraft 1 and 2 Horde's better than 3. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I liked it with 1 and 2. I mean, uh, let's see. Trying to think. Okay, some other. Okay, Thief I can't comment on. I still haven't played it. People can give me crap about that, but yeah, I don't know. Like any game, you can find something to improve. Well, I guess there's the difference between something to improve versus like was kind of a flaw. And I guess with Super Metroid, the only thing I can think of that was like a little bit of a flaw is like some of the like I think you had the like the aiming at diagonal angles can be like a little at some angles can be a little off with like the shoulder buttons and the what the later on they added abilities well, okay. Later on, they let you do pull-ups, but the game was designed without that in mind, so I don't think that was really a problem. But they also made like shooting missiles a lot easier in later ones, where you could just hold down a button and you fire the missile, whereas you had to like manually select it. But I mean, I don't know. It's the sort of thing where convenience isn't always an improvement for gameplay, though, because if they want it feeling a little clunkier, then that's a good thing. But yeah, Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night are really damn close because it's just everything is done so well in them. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Russ, you work hard. How do you stay interested and keep your focus on what you're doing? Have you ever lost interest or thought about quitting? Well, yeah, that can happen with all kinds of things, but I guess I kind of look at the goal I'm trying to achieve, and that tends to override it if it's something I don't. It's like I know I don't want to be doing something, but I know it's necessary step, then that kind of pushes me forward. I can't believe how consistent I've been all these years. Well, Stop Killing Games certainly wrecked my Not that my consistency was great in terms of timeliness, but it certainly wrecked that. Yeah, I mean, and not all the videos are like equal quality, but I certainly try to keep a minimum standard. I mean, I guess the main thing I think of is people are going to be watching this. If I was just a complete uh, stranger watching this and I didn't know what to expect, like would I feel like this is kind of wasting my time or something? So I try to like keep it presentable that if I didn't know, if I was somebody else watching it, that like there would be something here worth watching is kind of the way I look at it. So from that, like I don't really want to like phone things in because then it just becomes cheap and banal and then why even watch this? I mean, the unfortunate part is some people probably would anyway, but I don't. I feel like I owe people better than that. So. But yeah, the downside is it's led to many setbacks, many setbacks. Unfortunately, I'm taking out too many things. Given your hatred of floppy disk, how much relief did you feel when you learned that the U.S. stopped using 8-inch floppies to control nuclear bombs in 2019? Well, I wasn't aware of that, for starters. And that's actually a scenario where I wouldn't be too terribly heartbroken if the nuclear bomb failed to fire because nuclear missile, because the main purpose of them is as a deterrent. Whereas if we're actually going and firing them, nobody wins. Like it's so like let's say one side was attacking, but we're failing to launch the others. Well, that's more of the Earth that's going to be inhabitable then. I mean, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, they wiped us off the face of the country. We need to wipe them off. That's one. I mean, it's been used in a cliched manner, but I think it applies more than anything here. Where Gandhi's quote about an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. That's so the less nuclear, unless it's a scenario like something out of Independence Day where aliens are from space are literally invading the Earth, the less nuclear bombs that detonate, the better. Kind of period is the way I look at it. But even if it means your side is losing, the less that detonate, the better. Like it's because yeah, it's just the devastation from them is just so incredibly high, especially modern ones, like the ones that were fired in World War II. They're so much more powerful than those now, and those were already a nightmare. So, uh, well, but yeah, back to floppies. I don't actually hate the form factor of floppies. I kind of like yeah, I mentioned this in the Marty O'Donnell interview, where I kind of like the tactility of it, where you just go shunk chunk, of like putting them in there and like feeling the vibrations from the spring of inserting them. But it's just the reliability of them that I hated. I mean, I like the concept of them. Yeah, in fact, I think. I've seen these sort of hobby projects. I think it was, I forget his name. It's one of the guys from Mythbusters. I think he did this where he replicated like the Star Trek chair from the original series, where you'd occasionally see Kirk like insert these like plastic disc into the chair as like a data entry thing. And so he replicated that with like this wireless tag system, so he could just insert these, you know, colorful plastic cards into them, and they would have data on them. So yeah, I kind of like that conceptually. You know what? It's not impossible we see a return to that in terms of like massive data, like you're just talking about like storing like petabytes or something. It always sounds. It sounds like I keep hearing about it, and it's always like 5 to 10. It's perpetually 5 to 10 years away, where they're talking about like crystal storage or like this incredibly massive capacity that can last a long time, but it never seems to make it to the market. Yeah, somebody's saying Adam Savage. I think that's it. I'll see if I can pull up when I put this on YouTube. I'll see if I can pull up a link to show him doing the Star Trek chair. But yeah, the reliability was what I hated about them. I mean, obviously, the small storage capacity means there's almost no advantage compared to like a USB stick. But no, the form factor of them was kind of cool though. I'll give them that. But yeah, in a way, they're better than in terms of storage. They were kind of better than optical discs because you didn't really have to worry about scratching them. The exterior was already had a coating on it, so you could kind of be a little bit rougher with them. But yeah, actually, for who I heard about ceasing to use floppy disk even more recently than that, I think was in Japan. Either like the Japanese government or some regulation required some data, like important data, be stored on floppy disk, because the law was probably written back in the 80s or something, and it never changed. But I think they finally discontinued that so that it's not required. I'll have a link to an article on that too. Yeah, from what I've heard about Japan, it's like they're light year. It's like they're way ahead of us in some areas, and other areas it's like nothing's changed since the 80s, which is kind of cool in a way. So, let's see. Why do they call it an oven when you of in? Okay, I'm reading this literally, like no reinterpretation. Why do they call it oven when you of in the cold food of out hot eat the food? Okay, that's probably. Okay, they're saying it's a copy pasta. Okay, well, I don't know the reference. I mean, I don't know what the I don't know. Well, I don't know the reference, and I don't know what's actually being said. Okay, well, this is just a internet joke I don't know about. What do you miss in first-person shooter games? Hard to say. I guess it seems like there's less of like sort of mid-level games nowadays, because it seems like sometimes it feels like there's boomer shooters where they're intentionally going for an old aesthetic and may not have much of a story or anything, and then there's like high-end stuff that's usually more like live service or multiplayer focused. Now there's not like a lot in between with like a good single-player campaign. I feel like we're kind of light on those. I'm totally fine with boomer shooter aesthetics. Like if they want to make it look like it's straight out of the 90s, I have no problem with that. But it seems like there's a lot less of like I mentioned, with stuff like Sin, or like No One Lives Forever, or I guess Singularity was all right. So this is stuff that's like kind of in between, where it's not like the ultimate production value, or Painkiller. Man, oh man, we need more. Well, Painkiller's a little different because I feel like Painkiller's anemic on the story, but it's awesome everywhere else. So, that's right. They did a Painkiller remake, and I heard. I haven't looked into it, but I heard like the original creators, they disagreed with basically everything they were doing, and I saw what I saw a trailer for it, and it was full of cringy writing, and it's like, it's not that like Painkiller was like this high level, deep thinking experience, but the thing is, it took itself seriously uh, for its own setting. Like it's like, okay, I mean, it's obviously having fun with it, but it's like if you're making snarky jokes about the setting and treating literally hell as though it's just a big joke and it's not a comedy game, then it's just like, what are you doing with the writing? That's so that's I don't know. That's not the only place I've seen this sort of thing. It's just it's like these are people who don't know how to write a story or dialogue or something. Yeah, but I mean, Painkiller had great music, great settings, great gameplay. Story is quite anemic, but I would have liked more story for Painkiller, really. But everything else is just a home run. Yeah, I think I mentioned before. I remember I would play Painkiller. I might replay it in VR actually. Uh, and I would play for a little while, and then afterwards, my brain would almost be starved for something with intellectual content. Like, yeah, let's have like a real thick story here, like lots of characters and dialogue. I remember I would want that after playing Painkiller because it kind of like overcharged in the other direction. Let's see. Oh, somebody's saying that I've literally described how Serious Sam 2 felt. Cringe levels were lethal. No, it's different than. I can understand why you think that, but it's different because Serious Sam 2 is making itself a joke every step of the way. Like it never stops with that. This would be like, okay, like take what you have with Serious Sam 2, but then like let's have a real dramatic scene in there. And like we're supposed to care about the characters in between there. You'd be like, what? Like what? Or or you really are trying to scare the player, and then you're having these jokes in there. It's like, what are you doing? You're undermining your own setting. So it's Serious Sam 2 is not at odds with itself in terms of tone, setting, atmosphere. Yeah, it's it is the cutscenes. Will you say it's like lethal levels of cringe? Yes, some of them are. I agree. Other parts of the dialogue I think are hilarious as usual with Serious. Like I think Serious Sam has the best one-liners in the industry, but but nothing about Serious Sam 2 is at odds with itself. We're if you're trying to make a big scary environment that like the fate of heaven and hell rest upon you, you know, the making all these like snarky jokes and downplaying it just doesn't fit to me. So yeah, it's yeah, in fact I'd say that's more of a problem with Serious Sam 4, and I guess to a lesser extent 3, because 4 actually does, it has like the goofiness, but then it also does have some dramatic scenes in it which didn't help anything in my opinion. Like they should have just kind of kept it goofy. It's but even then it wasn't that with Serious Sam 4 is more like a light switch on and off. It's like they weren't undermining the strengths. Yeah, your writing should never undermine its strengths. I feel like so whatever, because Painkiller itself, it was sort of, there was like a little bit of implied goofiness with like the rock music coming, the metal music coming in when there's fight scenes, and then just how over the top the weapons are. It's sort of like a subtle goofiness to it, like, you know, it's nuanced, I guess. And then the rest of the times when they're trying to be scary, it can be kind of scary, so, or intense. What are your opinions on F-Zero GX? I've only played some of the original F-Zero, so I can't comment. That's certainly environment. I should look into F-Zero GX, I guess. That's certainly an environment that would benefit greatly from having lots of detail and fidelity to it. You know, I still remember the Mute City music in my head. Let's see. Well, I guess. Well, yeah. This is. Yeah, well, yeah. I guess I mentioned for FPS. I kind of also don't like first-person shooter games. Just like what I call kind of cheapening the experience. And this is hardly limited to first-person shooter games where you have your main game and your campaign, but they're also trying to upsell you skins. They're also trying to upsell you like account info and requiring you to connect online. They're trying to like nickel and dime you after the original purchase. And true, and yeah, somebody, there's always somebody who says like, oh, you don't have to buy it. Yeah, of course you don't, but it also cheapens the experience, reminding you this is a game and trying to sell you little tidbits rather than just get kind of lost in the game, you know. So like it's detrimental even if you're not doing anything. It's just, you know, I remember what it's like not having that. But you don't really have to worry about that with indie games. But I think the problem is on the indie end, you have less of the first-person shooter game with a story. It tends to be kind of minimal, which is understandable because they don't have the same kind of budget and resources. Ooh. Besides the Black Mirror, are there any other games that would have been your all-time favorite but weren't because of a weak ending? Well, I probably gave it that rating anyway, but it certainly factored into it was original Deus Ex. They're kind of weak. Good premises, but, you know, phoned in execution. Okay, games with like weak endings. Yeah, geez, I didn't see this question earlier. Well, in all honesty, I think, unfortunately, I've been so completely saturated with it, I can't look at it as like a normal game. But Half-Life's endings aren't the strongest either. You know, they're kind of to be continued endings, and that's not that great. I feel happier with my endings for Freeman's Mind, like the one we had for the kicker. I think that's a better ending than what you get from Half-Life 2 from Half-Life 1 default. Half-Life 2's isn't that great either. I mean, it's kind of neat, but you know, you kind of wanted more of a conclusion. What are some other games with like? Well, yeah, I mentioned Gothic. It kind of phoned in ending. Somebody's asking. I have not played Slay the Spire 1 or 2. I think that's a turn-based combat game. Okay, so I was saying System Shock 1. Yeah, System Shock. I actually haven't played the original to completion, but I played the remake, and yeah, the ending's kind of more to be desired. The ending to 2 is better, but it's a bit short. It's awfully short. The 2's is satisfying, but too short. Yeah, games for. I'm sure there's more, but. Okay, so I'm saying I contradict myself. I wouldn't want to live in Armed and Delirious's world. Yes, correct. But this contradicts your statement that you would live in Thing World or something to that effect. I'm gonna have to swallow my conscience and rewatch the episodes. Thing World. Well, I figure you're taking it all as a whole, but the thing is, for what I remember in Armed and Delirious, while the setting's exotic, everybody there is kind of crazy one way or another, and that would get old. You know, it's like living in an asylum. So I might have liked I forget what Thing World was in. Oh yeah, was that in reference in the Normality episode? But I said I would want to live in Thing World. Okay, maybe I forgot what I said in Armed and Delirious. Well, it had neat looking places. Look, but like this, I liked it enough that I would be interested in touring it for a month if I had that option. So I could. There were aesthetics areas I like of Armed and Delirious. Like, yeah, the Little Prince worlds, as I would call them. But you know, if you're living in the universe, you're taking the whole package. So I don't know if I would want to. I'd have to look at the. I'd have to look at the context. Let's see. Recently, a machinima called Half-Life VR, but the AI is self-aware. Got a sequel called, yeah. I'm curious, have you seen the series since it has been compared with your series, Freeman's Mind? And also, would you be open to having a cameo in the series? I guess that they really want to. I need to get back to other people who've been contacting me about other stuff. Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. The VR camera work as a spectator, it just made me not want to watch more of it. It's nothing against them. It's just the format of it. Watching somebody else do VR isn't always the most pleasant experience with the camera work. Yeah, no, it was decent. I remember thinking they were kind of overusing the joke about I think it was the passport or something. So I watched a little bit of it, but didn't go too far into it. It seemed good otherwise. I just wasn't a fan of the camera work, which is kind of, which you don't really have a choice on if you're doing it in VR. And I could be an outlier too. So, is the hyper depression imminent? Sure looks like it could be. We are raising so many factors are coming together that I don't see anything stable about the current economic order, but it seems to keep going without everything collapsing yet, and I don't know how it does that. I thought that would have really come to a head after COVID, but it keeps limping along somehow, so I don't pretend to know what's going on. I mean, I know lots of reasons it shouldn't be, but it's for why it doesn't, then I don't know. They're saying in this blog post, and they give a link, which I can't post here because I'm not logged in. Someone describes how they use AI to completely decompile a game that was written in 2003. Effectively, they were able to turn the raw binary back into usable source code for the game in a few weeks with a few grand in AI token cost. That's amazing if that's really how it happened. Do you think this might be a way to save dead games in the future as AI improves? Uh, um, well, maybe. I guess it just depends on the server code. Obviously, a modern game has more complicated structure than something from 2003, but AI is also improving, and I doubt uh, it's the most efficient way. I doubt he did it the most efficient way. Even if a more recent game is 10 times harder to decompile, that's probably still under a year and under $10,000, which is nothing but totally within the realm of possibility for a dedicated fan. Okay, well, there's a few things there. When you say 10 times harder, that might be more than just needing that could mean a lot more than just needing 10 times the computing power. It could mean you need a 10 times smarter algorithm, which may or may not happen, or model rather. So just be, some like I, analogy I've used. Well, okay, I have to repeat myself from previous chats, but what it, I think that is awesome as so far as you can make it work. Now that said, for saving dead games, it's kind of different because it's not just about like trying to decompile the existing code into something that you can edit. It's also about trying to reverse engineer a server. So that means there's a lot of code you just don't have. If you're lucky, you have lots of network protocols. I've mentioned before on the people who made the Crew Unlimited, the Whammy, the guy, one of the leaders of that, said that, if they hadn't been like just monitoring the network traffic and recording all this information in the months leading up to the shutdown, there would have been no chance of them creating the server emulator. So we got lucky on that because they had a community of people who were trying to preserve it. So if you're trying to reverse engineer that, I mean, that would be, again, it'd be awesome if you can, but I'm not having the chunks of just the compiled code removed that you need. That might be a bridge too far. It's hard to say, but maybe not, or maybe AI. Again, I'm just pure speculating here, but maybe AI could help get it to some runnable state. So in other words, you might be missing tons of things, but if it can get it to the point where you can at least like fire it up and like run around in it, but even though lots of things don't work, that's still an improvement. I mean, I wouldn't count on this as saving the day, but that would be a fantastic use of AI. Yeah, I mentioned earlier how, I think what NVIDIA is doing with DLSS 5 is a very poor use of AI. This is a very good use of AI. So yeah, I mean, plus that's one game, and it's hard to say like how complex that's the other thing. It's hard to say how complex the code was and how scalable this is, or how many times you can repeat it. Like I remember, I think was it last year, some super fans managed to decompile Sonic Unleashed for Xbox 360 so you could and recompile it on PC, which again, awesome. But I remember there was speculation like, oh, well now we're gonna get all these Xbox 360 games, recompiled on PC. That hasn't happened, best to my knowledge. So even though they proved it's possible, it could still be just a mountain of work and may not scale to every game. Though I've heard, I think there are some fans working on Fable 2, which would be great to have that be able to be recompiled. I think there's a Wikipedia entry of games that have been recompiled. It's relatively small list. It was like 1 or 2 dozen games. Perfect Dark is one of them, where it's been someone wrote a mod to recompile the Nintendo 64 version to PC and have like improvements like mouse aiming and widescreen compatibility, that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I'm all for it if it works, because To me, that's an example of using AI for like a really good use of it. Okay, well, somebody's saying why so beautiful, so I think that's a cue to start skipping more of the questions. I will say I think I look decent from some angles and really odd from others. So I wouldn't go that far, but it depends on the angle. Definitely, I've heard Lincoln was like that too. Uh, I did. I missed the first part of this question. What game features and mechanics do you think are currently underrated? I've been asked this a few times, so maybe check the previous chats. I forget what my answers were, but they're saying they played Majesty not long ago and were surprised to discover how few games there are with such indirect control, where you mostly set the priorities for the AI. Yeah, I haven't played Majesty, but I have heard that's how it works, where like you set a bounty on things and hope some of your population picks it up, and if they're not, then you just keep raising the bounty until they try to do it. Or yeah, no, from what I remember, it's not even that they'll attempt it, it's that you get a successful attempt. So you might have a bounty like go kill this evil wizard or something, and then you might get a few takers, but then the evil wizard kills them. So you got to keep raising the cash until you can get like a kitted out knight or something to really take them down or something like that. Uh, that that yeah, that's a neat concept. There were a lot of I will. It does kind of feel like that. Even though there's more games than ever, in some ways it kind of feels like there was more experimentation in like the late '90s, early 2000s than there. Well, I guess if you really want, well, there'd be simpler games like Commodore 64. Everything was they did everything then, but the more advanced concepts that nothing really emerged. And even though there's tons of indie games now, a whole lot of them kind of follow treaded paths. And personally, I'm okay with that if it's a fun path. But I could, you could make the argument there's been some stagnation on that because it's probably harder to sell novel concepts than something that's based on something people already know and like. Like I was remembering, like in Impossible Creatures, you basically made all your own units by combining the genetic features of different animals. Something I can't think of a game like that since, but there might have been some. Uh, let's see. One. There's been a little bit of this, and some of them I need to follow up more on. But I kind of like the idea of strategy first person shooter hybrids, where you can kind of in some fashion, you can kind of step out and have like your grand real time strategy, but then you can kind of go in and then control things on the ground too. When it's done well, that can be a really fun concept. Uh, yeah, there's let's see, what are some other games I'm thinking of that did like exotic things? Um, well, I guess there's some more God games that are coming out soon. There's like the new one by Peter Molyneux, and then there's another one I forget the name of. I mean, those weren't necessarily like my favorite genre, but those were more kind of creative. Okay, so I haven't even heard of this game. Seventh Cross RPG that you change your DNA. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah, I remember kind of complaining about that in Invisible War. How I felt like there should be some cost to using the black market augmentations. Like those should mess you up somehow. Like either your appearance or you have gives you amazing abilities, but you're weakened elsewhere or something. I feel like that was a missed opportunity. So I'm saying they trust Peter Molyneux's vision about as far as they can throw him. Yeah, he's gotten those complaints a lot. I looked at the trailer for the new one. I forget what the name of it was, but it looked promising. That's the trailer at least. but yeah, I have heard he has a reputation of overpromising. But okay, I'm skimming some questions I've gotten multiple times before. Uh, let's see. What's up? Yeah, all these have been asked before. Which I don't mind answering questions if they've been asked before, but I want more votes on them if they're like that. So, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? I didn't have a clear vision. Uh, I mean, I sort of mildly considered the idea of being like a commercial airline pilot, but not that seriously. I was just that seemed like a job maybe I could enjoy. I never really had a clear vision, and it was something I was always just kind of hoping I would find something, you know. Let's see. We request for me to do a Super Metroid video. Uh, they're saying they just got a Super Nintendo Classic for wife's 40th, and I'm getting through it for the first time. They played Zero Mission and the original Prime 1, 2, and 3 beforehand. They can really see why this one stands out. Okay, yeah, I sometimes feel like those are the best perspectives on games. People who just don't have any of the association with it, and they're just going in fresh, just because people told them to play this game, what they think of it. Like, I mean, even if he hadn't played, like, so somebody who likes games, you know, so it's not, but they just have no bias or any expectations of what to think. Those are some I really do like perspectives like that, because I feel like that's as close as you're gonna get to like objective, because you know some games they were fantastic for the time but then don't age so well. Super Metroid I think ages great, but let's see. Yeah, I wasn't really thinking. I don't know if there's that much I would say about it that hasn't already been discussed to death. But I'm trying to think of. Let's see. Oh yeah, I thought that there was something else they added, but maybe not. Yeah, well, I mean, because the things that are going to be like the most timeless in a game, or just like enjoyable gameplay, a good atmosphere, and I think like good music or good writing. So, you know, if you go real old with games, they were kind of like handcuffed with how interesting they could make the atmosphere, or it was only within certain boundaries because the technology wasn't there. So, but I'd say, I mean, and I guess there's some concepts that are so grand in scope they weren't really able to be fleshed out earlier. But I mean, from a certain, I'd say for 2D graphics, you kind of maxed out the. But I don't think you really have things that like obviously top stuff that was coming out on the Super Nintendo. You just have stuff that's as good or different, you know, because there is fantastic artistry coming from that in during that time, and it's, you know, if you're going for pixel art, you can only get, I'd say you can only get as good or like a similar style, that sort of thing. Let's see. Yeah, unfortunately, the at Ross broadcast, I'm not going to notice this time because I'm not logged in. I'll log in next time. Would a tournament be a better place to visit for a month for the insanity than Armed and Delirious? A tournament would be interesting, but it would. Let's see. It was the, but they were kind of like, it was kind of like Westworld, where they were copying the different eras, but they had the futuristic one too, I think, didn't they? So I mean, it would be interesting for sure, but it wouldn't be. I certainly wouldn't say no to it, but like Armed and Delirious is just, yeah. Earlier say it's crazy. It's not max crazy, but it's crazy, and it's just like it's. I figure if you have like a one-time visit, you want as much fresh stuff as you can possibly get, and yeah, like I feel like by the end of a month, I probably would have seen everything there is to see in Eternum like multiple times. So. So I was saying, am I using OBS Studio to stream? Yes, I am. You can sign into that and get an integrated chat window. I'm sure, but me doing it correctly with no problems, I would budget at least 10 minutes for something I'm not familiar with. So, um, yeah, there's a good saying like, from the Red Green Show, like if it ain't broke, you're not trying hard enough, So. Have you been able to pay any attention to the Myriant situation? I don't know what that is. Maybe I heard of it, but oh yeah, that's like a giant kind of abandonware and not abandonware, kind of old game archive, just like a massive one getting kind of pulled down, but they're letting everybody download what they want before the end of the month, I think. So yeah, I think you have like a couple days left if you want to get something from that. Yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on what you're looking for, because for the stuff, like I already went on like an abandonware just spree, like around 2019, around the time Machinima pulled down all the old videos. That was kind of a wake up call to me. Like, hey, if there's stuff I want to back up, I better really start backing it up. So I just stockpiled a bunch of abandonware I was interested in. I think I got. I mean, for the PC, I think I got like 95% of what I would be after, the things that are no longer sold. But even with this going down, there's always underground groups that are kind of keeping this alive one way or another. Thankfully, but there could have been some super rare stuff on there that isn't well copied. But those would be things like, like unreleased games that managed to make their way out of the studio, or like magazines, gaming magazines, that sort of stuff. That's like probably. I'd be surprised if there are any games on there, or many, that aren't like real specialty items that aren't reproduced somewhere else in some other abandonware archive somewhere else. So yeah, I mean, it sucks going down, but look, these are the fruits from having copyright law that is utterly broken for preservation. Like it's just broken, and for preservation. So you have to have, in order to preserve things, in any sort of sane fashion, they do have to be kind of underground, unfortunately. But thankfully, the diehards are doing a good job of that. So. What are your favorite survival horror games? Let me think. Well, I mean, I've played up through 5 now for Resident Evil, the originals. Although I haven't played Code Veronica, which I've heard might be getting a remake later, so I might as well wait on that. Resident Evil 2 was probably my favorite out of the ones I'd say 1 and 2 were probably my favorites out of those. And I really like the first third of 4. I mean, the others are all right, but they're not like absolute favorites. Let's see. What are some other? Well, Silent Hill 1 and 2. Those are good. Again, 3 is okay. 4 I gave up on because of the gameplay, though I should watch a playthrough of the rest of it. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, these are like real mainstream ones. Clive Barker's Undying. It's that's one that you talk about would be an all-time favorite, but the ending is kind of so. Yep, that's one of them. Ending's pretty weak. But the rest of the game's fantastic from what I remember. Well, I guess now we could kind of add Killing Time to it. It had a lot going for it. It's definitely not a perfect game by any means. There are parts I didn't like, but the parts I did like, I loved it. So, Uh, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing some more knockoffs of Killing Time and Clive Barker's Undying. Has there been like a spiritual successor to that where it's like kind of like the ultimate haunted house experience where it kind of goes beyond the haunted house and to the grounds and the area and kind of defend yourself? I wonder if some other. I guess I like ones where you can defend yourself. It's not just running and hiding, but it's not like you're overpowered, so it's kind of close. Uh, for some reason, see, I'm hesitant to even call my. Well, okay, System Shock 2 for sure. That's on there. And I really like the System Shock remake. Those are both great. I enjoyed them, but they're not my favorites will be the Dead Space series. It just didn't quite. It just didn't quite click with me with the scariness of it. I haven't played Total Chaos. I'm not aware of that one. Have I heard of Darkwood? Yeah, I played some of Darkwood on the stream, actually. It's on the Accursed Farms junk channel. Didn't quite get into it, but it was mostly the gameplay. I'm not big into like the top-down gameplay and then things being sort of cryptic. Or maybe it's not that cryptic, but I just wasn't thinking as clearly because I was streaming. The atmosphere of Darkwood was really cool. I definitely need to watch a playthrough of the rest of it. Gameplay didn't quite grab me, but I've always been kind of biased against the top-down view unless it's like a vertical shooter or an RTS. But no, it had a lot going for it. I for sure want to watch a playthrough of the rest of it. What were some other survival? Well, here, let me just look up survival horror games. I mean, yeah, I played some of Outlast. Wasn't really my thing because you couldn't defend yourself. I still need to play Alien Isolation, and when I do, I'm going to play it in VR. So that'll might up the fear factor for me because I think it has a full VR mod. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I played the first Amnesia. I played the Penumbra games. They were like okay. It didn't quite. I know those have a cult following, but those didn't quite do it for me. Okay, somebody's saying Gloom. Yeah, Gloomwood's on my list. I didn't realize it was survival horror. Yeah, sure. I played. Again, it's not my favorite, but it was all right. Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. That one, a decent chunk of that counts as survival horror. Not all of it. Yeah, that's a very uneven game. Okay, Total Chaos. That one sounds familiar. Let's see. Oh wow, geez, I either haven't heard of this or it's on my list and I forgot about it. Yeah, I could look into it. Yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing in some of the screenshots. So. Okay, someone's saying Nightmare of Decay. Yeah, okay, well since you met, is that the one I played? No, I haven't played that. Okay, sure, Nightmare of Decay. That one might be on my list somewhere. Nightmare of Decay. I think some of this looks a little bit familiar. So cool. I'm probably behind on it. Okay, somebody's saying Fear. Yeah, I've played Fear. That's sort of survival horror. It's more like a shooter with horror. It's more like a spooky shooter, I guess. You're given plenty of ammo in Fear, but I feel like survival horror. You're kind of like on the edge of surviving, So, but again, I like ones where you're given like just enough ammo, or you have to make decisions with your ammo, like in Resident Evil, where you can't just fight every enemy, but you have to kind of pick it. Or your weapon, you have weapons, but they're not that great, so. Oh, somebody's saying Trepang 2. Yeah, I played that. Trepang 2 was absolutely a spiritual successor to Fear. It was decent, It was kind of uneven too, from what I remember, but it had plenty of good moments. But it for sure had a lot of that Fear feel to it. RE7 in VR? Yeah, in fact, as I understand it, there is a VR mod for every Resident Evil past 6. So that means 2 and 3 remake, 4 remake, 5, 7, 8, and Requiem. So, yeah, I may have to start playing all the Resident Evil. I haven't played 6, and I've heard that might be the worst one, so I'm kind of on the fence if I want to try it or not. But after that, I'll keep going in order. And it's a little unclear to me what the VR status is for Resident Evil 4 Original. There is an Oculus version of it in VR, but I don't know if there's like a general PC VR version of it. But even then, I could run it in stereoscopic. But full VR is better. Yeah, so I'm up through 5. I've played all the original, although I haven't played the remake of 1, but I kind of remember 1 pretty well. So I've played all the original ones up through 5, except for Code Veronica. And there's some miscellaneous side games, like rail shooter ones I haven't played. But okay, Dino Trauma is an FPS Dino Crisis, basically. Okay, have I heard of that one? There was one. No, I haven't. Okay. Yeah, that could be neat. Yeah, screenshots look good. I know there was some. I know there was some Dino Crisis spiritual successor where they were making a big deal about not having it on PC because they didn't want people modding it and ruining their artistic vision or something like that. I'm just like, come on, you know, like they saw what people did to Final Fantasy and Resident Evil of dressing them in silly outfits. They're like, no, we can't. Like, I get the feeling that can't. I don't think that's the reason they're not putting it on PC. I think that's an excuse. Like that's. Okay, they're saying Dino Trauma is way more Doom than Dino Crisis. Yeah. Yeah, like the survival horror stuff I appreciate is kind of few and far between, actually. It's not that there's no shortage of survival horror games, but the ones that do things I like. Again, I don't know if I would count it as survival horror or not, but I remember being okay as, was it Cold Fear? I think with survival horror, for me, I think that one, now that I've played a lot of games, it makes me, well, again, I like having some way to defend myself, even if it's kind of weak. And I think that makes me lean into like the story portion even harder. Because if you're just wandering around and it's just scary stuff, but like no plot or very little, I don't know. I sort of check out from it, but I want to be intrigued about where it's going. So I think the survival horror ones I want to see more of and play more of are ones that there's a real story in there, and you know it's leading you on through the experience. So I think that's one where I want more story from survival horror. So the ones like that, and where you're not just running and hiding from everything, not super common, I'd say. But yeah, well, Cry of Fear. Oh yeah, They Hunger. That's old mod for it. Somebody's saying Cry of Fear. Yeah, that's one I've been meaning to try. A lot of people have mentioned that one. Yeah, I could look into Cry of Fear. Yeah, They Hunger is kind of spoiled Ravenholm for me because I played it before I played Half-Life 2, and then when I played Ravenholm, I'm like, well, come on, They Hunger was scarier than this. So, you know, it kind of ruined it for me in a bit. That Ravenholm didn't have the same impact that They Hunger is scarier than Ravenholm and Half-Life 2. Conscript, I haven't even heard of that one. Let's see. Oh yeah, there was. I don't know if this is the. Okay, I'm not even familiar with that one. Um, Well, I guess that's the other thing I like from survival horror is that it's it's not really going for pure horror. It's more about scary. It's terror. That's the stuff I like because you can have a lot of horror in a game and it's a little scary, but it's more just like shocking, like or sometimes really sad too. Like Stasis, I felt was kind of like that. Stasis isn't the scariest game, but it absolutely is a horror game, and that's not my thing as much. I'm there to have the daylight scared out of me. So, um, let's see what's. I had another thought on this, but I lost it. I got distracted by. Oh yeah, it's on my list somewhere, either on the website or it's on my personal list, which I'll put on the website later. It looked like it was kind of an old school Resident Evil knockoff, but they had a gimmick where you could kind of play it in an isometric view, but then also adjust the camera and play it like on ground level, like behind the shoulder thing. And that looked like it might be interesting. So just saying, was their game of the year back in 2024? Okay, here, I'll look up Conscript. I may not have that on my list. See what it's like. Have you seen Amnesia: The Bunker? No, I haven't. I heard people say it's good though, but again, I played the first Amnesia. I played a little bit of the second one, kind of gave up on it. I haven't played the third or the Bunker. I don't know. Amnesia. I mean, isn't that another one where you're basically you just have to kind of run and hide? Kind of, like the later Penumbra ones or the Outlast. I might be talking about Holston. Somebody. I don't know. That it might be Holston that I'm thinking of. Yeah. But yeah, I like that idea of like kind of mixing and matching the camera angles. Oh, speaking of mixing and matching camera angles, I have managed to have a sort of okay experience in Grim Dawn in first person perspective, like because that's normally an isometric one. But I had to do two things. One, I had to get the script to run it on the first person mode, but then on first person mode, there's no skybox, so it's like you'll see all the lighting, but then the sky will be completely black, and that kind of pulls you out of it. So I found a reshade mod to add in fog to kind of make it just look like everything's shrouded in fog, and it really makes up for it. It kind of looks natural. However, I want to say that game is unless you're masochistic, it's kind of unplayable in first person mode. So what I plan to do is go in with cheats, with like a no target cheat or something, and in VR mode, and just kind of walk through most of the more scenic parts of the game to kind of get the experience of it. I mean, I've played through. I think I haven't played the expansion, but I played through most of Grim Dawn. So, speaking of games that were never intended for ground view level, but have so much detail, you kind of want to see it anyway. It's done that for me. Okay, let me get through a few more questions, and I'll go for live ones. What are your thoughts on Serious Sam now being 25 years old as a franchise? My thoughts are we need a sequel, and stop doing prequels. So we need a sequel to Serious Sam 2. Though a mid-quel might be okay, like as long as it's after first encounter. Well, second is directly after it. So something in between second encounter and 2 would still be all right. But yeah, like keep it up. I mean, Serious Sam. It's definitely an uneven series and even uneven games, but like the high marks are so high, they're like some of my favorite in gaming. So it's and the low marks can be pretty annoying. So it's they just keep trying. The gameplay was pretty good on 4. I felt like thematically it wasn't quite as strong as some of the previous ones, but like there are awesome moments in every Serious Sam game, or the main ones. They have a whole bunch of side games I haven't played, but um, it's somebody saying Grim Dawn works and Titan Quest might work as well. Probably not because even if you got it working, Titan Quest, it's like rendered to be seen from like one angle. So there's a lot of data that's just not there. Whereas I think Grim Dawn, you can rotate the camera, which means there's a lot more fleshed out. But yeah, keep trying. Keep more coming with Serious Sam. I mean, I think 3 was probably the worst out of all of them. But yeah, four and the Siberian one was definitely better. Well, the Siberian one really felt like it really kind of felt like a cut content from the original, from 4 that they expanded. That's kind of what it felt like to me. But yeah, there's great moments in all of them. And there's annoying parts kind of in all of them too. But the annoyances seem to be better than they used to be. So yeah, just keep coming. I will absolutely be more interested in a Serious Sam sequel. Let's see. Okay, we have a cannibalism question, which I feel like if I needed to do that to survive, I probably wouldn't be too picky. What are your thoughts on the 2 most divisive bonds, License to Kill and On Her Majesty's Secret Service? I actually haven't seen either of those, but I've seen clips. I do. I'm not sure if I'm really that interested in License to Kill, but I probably do want to watch On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I've heard that one. I could be wrong. I've heard that bond is closest to the book. Like it's like the most accurate or something. But I don't know. I'm not. I like them all right, but I'm not like an enormous Bond fan. But I'm sort of half interested in the new one they're making, because on one hand, like a really fleshed out Bond game could be fun, especially if it's like a new storyline. But at the same time, they're like making him a lot younger, and like I don't know. It's like if somebody is like young and real cocky, they're kind of annoying. But you feel like Bond, pretty much every other Bond is older, and he feels like he's sort of earned it, you know. But that's for the games, not the movie. But it sounds like that one's gonna get like absolute top of the line production value. So I could be interested. I'll just have to see what it looks like. So yeah, out of the regular Bonds, I think my favorite would probably be either a sort of tie between Sean Connery and Pierce Brosnan. Though Daniel Craig's pretty good. Roger Moore, I'm not as much of a fan of. But. Let's see. If Stop Telling Games achieves all of its goals, what do you think will happen with gamer movements to get live service games killed due to dislike? I don't like the practice, but if there's no kill switch available, how can gamers be effective in this way to get the industry towards something we, the gamer zeitgeist, prefer? This goes back to what I mentioned at the beginning. They're 2 separate things. If you want them to stop making a certain type of game, that actually is an area I think voting with your wallet can actually do something. So basically, you don't buy them. You know, see that's the thing. People must have said that to me like 100 times. Like, oh, you don't like these games, then don't buy them. It's like, no, I like the game and I want to keep it, so don't buy it. Yeah, that doesn't solve that problem. Now, obviously, I get how a boycott works if everybody did that, but it's been proven time and time again the gaming public doesn't have that kind of discipline for that. Plus, I think there's an artistic argument for it in that each one is a unique experience. So it's like you're saying, okay, experience less art. You know, if you want to do it that way. It's like, oh, you like this band? Well, you should never listen to one of their albums again until they stop doing drugs or something. You want some demand from the band. That's not going to happen. So it's like, that should, I feel like that burden shouldn't be on the customer to begin with, is the sort of thing. So you say if there's no kill switch available, well, there are limited resources for support, and there is limited profitability. So yeah, if you want to boycott a game, you can. Okay, yeah, High Guard's a good example. Okay, a ton of people hate that game. Fine, don't play it, and it went down fast. The only difference between what happened with High Guard and if Stop Killing Games is already in place is, fine, they would shut it down, and then the 3 people or whoever who want to keep playing it can keep playing it. And that game would have been a commercial failure, and that lesson would have been received on the developer and the publisher end. So it wouldn't change the dynamic any. So you could still send the message, you hate this game, but then the few people who did spend money on it get to keep it. That doesn't change it from there. They still lose just as much money, by people not buying into it. So you can make it, if you hate a game or a studio, you can boycott it or have a campaign against it and hope it doesn't do well hope it doesn't do well commercially. That's a separate thing from the people who did buy it being able to keep it. So hey, even I'm not that interested in High Guard, so I probably wasn't gonna play it much anyway. But even I saw the screenshots and thought, oh yeah, this environment looks pretty cool. So even bad games can have like good elements to them. And as I understand it, the game probably wasn't that bad. It's just like a very cynical kind of cash-in attempt that backfired. So it was probably like a mediocre version of it. So yeah, you still have all the same tools for expressing not liking a game, even if Stop Killing Games passes. That doesn't change it at all. It's because, look, you think the publisher who is engaged in these practices you don't like gives a damn if the public can play the game after it or not? With how some of them react, listen, with how the industry reacts, it's going to bug some of them more if you can keep playing one of their old games. Not all of them, but again, that's what Video Games Europe was kind of saying, that like, no, we can't have people running these games. They said that in their damn paper, that this could affect the profitability of their newer games, that if people keep playing the old ones. Like that's some sort of God-given right that when they release a product, they must be perpetually paid for it. Like even if people aren't interested in it. I mean, it's coming from such a place of arrogance, really. But so yeah, if Stop Killing Games passed, I doubt they would lose sleep over it, but from everything I've seen, the companies that are engaged in practices, that are probably engaged in practices you don't like, they're going to be more upset that you're still playing an older game of theirs than if it's just eradicated, so. So you don't lose any tools at all if Stop Killing Games passes, and you might even gain a little bit. In truth, I doubt companies care that. Actually, it's hard to say, because I was going to say, in truth, I doubt companies care. Most companies care that much. The publishers, not the developers, can obviously be very invested, but about whether like, it's usually a fringe group, not always, but typically a fringe group of people are still playing an old game of theirs that they just moved on from and don't even think about. I doubt they care that much either way. And the few times they do care, like I think Overwatch is a pretty stark example where they shut down Overwatch to release Overwatch 2 to get everybody to shove over there. Those are the times when that actually is gonna put more pressure on them to make better games. Because let's say they have to compete with Overwatch because people want to keep playing the game that they bought. And let's say Overwatch 2 sucks. Some people say it did, I don't know. well, then it's like, well, if their new game just isn't, they're not doing a good job over the one they previously did, well, then that means that's a liability for them now, because they they can't, they're having trouble competing against themselves. You see this in software. It's like Microsoft having trouble getting people to move over to Windows 11 because 10 because 11 has problems, and 10's still good enough for a lot of people. So yeah, they're not. And the thing is, the people playing the old one paid money for it, So it's not like the company's being treated unfairly. It's that they're not in a position of just supreme dominance over all your all your purchase decisions with them. At some point, you get to keep something. So yeah, that might encourage better games because, well, yeah, I think that was kind of the case with The Crew and The Crew 2, where I prefer The Crew over The Crew 2 for kind of multiple reasons. I mean, I guess if you really like the flying and boating mechanic, yeah, I mean, the water races are better in 2, but because there were none in the original. But I mean, they got rid of content that was in the original, and then the thematic shift wasn't that big a deal to me either way. But yeah, I mean, I don't even have a copy of the new one, Motorfest, or I always forget if it's Motorfest or Motorsport. But I mean, I might play it eventually now that they're going to add the offline mode, so it won't be just money down the toilet. Because to me, that game is kind of competing with Test Drive Unlimited and Unlimited 2, because okay, those games are in Hawaii. The new Motorsport or Fest or whatever is in Hawaii. It's like, well, why? I'm not in such a rush to play that. What's it bring it to the table? Especially when they've been killing the others. But thankfully, I think hopefully they mean it on the offline modes. So yeah, no, that's how it should be. Is that if that's if we were to apply this to other mediums, like what if there's a sequel to the movie, and the film industry was complaining that people were still watching the original because, and that's eating into their sales because the sequel sucks, So what they want from the government is to make it lawful for them to remove all copies of the old one from customers to incentivize them to to go watch the new movie. I mean, it's insane. But the games industry has been getting away with this because there hasn't been enough attention. And again, I keep saying I think we're going to win this because the law really is on our side on this. The law wasn't written for this exact situation, but for what it was written for, this flies against it. So it's, the more attention there is on this, the worse that is for companies engaged in this practice. Like shining a spotlight on it is the best thing that can happen for us, because then the inherent unfairness of the practice comes out more and more. All right, yeah, I got on my soapbox rant there, but yeah, you have just as many tools if it passes. How to achieve same beard? I think that's mostly a genetic thing. So I don't have any special beard routine. What's your favorite alcoholic beverage if you have one? Alternatives are acceptable if you don't drink. Yeah, I generally don't drink. I've had a little bit in the past, just as kind of an experiment. And I've occasionally had champagne at New Year's, a little bit of that. But I'm not big on it. But I guess from the smell, which it tastes a little bit like, my favorite would probably be either rum or bourbon. I'm remembering in UHF, when he's depressed and goes to the bar, they ask him for the order. He says blueberry daiquiri. I was thinking, yeah, that might be something I would have. Something real fruity. So, something that tastes more like a dessert. I think my main interest in alcohol would be this like a flavoring for a dessert, like flavoring with rum or bourbon. With games like Messiah and Trick Style, you've talked about the uncanny low-res cyberpunk style and how immersive it is. As a tool, how would you use AI to address some of the graphic obstacles you face? Would there be a limit to how many embellishments you would seek? Yeah, I'd be extremely wary of that sort of thing because, well, for a few reasons. One, the AI upscaling, sometimes it looks good. Other times you can kind of see that soupy, uncanny valley feeling look to the texture, and it's just like, okay, this doesn't help that much. Other times, another reason is sometimes the games were made, or a lot of times, they were made with the low resolution aesthetic in mind. So if you're really upscaling the textures on it, but there's still like these low polygonal bodies, it just looks kind of weird. I mean, it can look all right, but it's not this. It's always like a love-hate thing for me because on one hand, I really don't like aliasing, and even if things all kind of fit together at low resolution, it's still low resolution and kind of blurry, and I've never really liked it that much unless it's pixel art. So I kind of just want the sharper picture, period, even with the low res textures. But I realize that isn't as cohesive as what the original was. But I also hate aliasing. So sometimes a good compromise is having the original resolution, but being able to force anti-aliasing in there for 3D. So you're still getting all the immersion. Sometimes even more so, but it's still kind of blurry. But you can get used to it, I guess. But yeah, with AI, so it might change the look of it, and it might change the sort of artistic direction in a way that's, I don't know, not always great, but I think it becomes debatable which is better. Yeah, like I think somebody was kind of annoyed in Martian Gothic that I was using DG Voodoo and having like the clear polygon characters against the backdrops, but whatever. Um, yeah, I think I mentioned before, for old games, it's usually not the textures that like kind of making me wish, oh, I wish this was more defined. Uh, Not all, there's a few exceptions, like I mentioned the skybox in Sonic Heroes. Yeah, having a high res skybox, I definitely do appreciate. But usually the things I appreciate most from more advanced graphics are like more details. So that has a higher render budget to have like all sorts of little things there to kind of make the world feel more real. And I'd say with a caveat, like lighting options. I don't really care if the lighting's like super realistic or not. Just that there's enough of a rendering budget that we can have like several lights if we want light sources and placements. I mean, I think there's games with great lighting, geez, from like the early 2000s. So I'm not too picky about that, but it gives them breathing room with more modern games. So okay, I'm skipping a few more. Okay, there's somebody who's asking like, yeah, okay, I may forget to enforce this, but in the future, let's say 1 to 2 questions per person max. This person's asking like 6 or so. So I'm gonna kind of skip some. Well, okay, I'll address this. I'm wondering if Freeman's Mind will cover the episodes as well. If that happens, how you explain that microwave casserole incident being mentioned? That is halfway retcon, so I don't have to respect it because that's an option in Half-Life One to blow up the casserole. So that was one possibility. So he didn't, so didn't happen as far as I'm concerned. Have I played the Hitman series? I've played a little bit of the first one, and it wasn't really my kind of gameplay, but I plan to watch a playthrough of the rest of it, and I guess I'm kind of curious about some of the newer ones. Maybe people can recommend, like, from a gameplay perspective, which one is the best one to start off on. And maybe I could just watch playthroughs of the ones prior to those. But yeah, I'm sort of, the original one felt kind of unforgiving to me from what I was playing, like, unless you know exactly what you should be doing. So ones that give you a little more flexibility for figuring out how you want to approach the situation, I think I would like. Yeah, like I don't mind. Yeah, like with stealth games, I don't really like ones that are like really harsh if you screw up the stealth. I like having I like having a few options if I'm blowing the stealth on it, even if it's real hard. Like like we're talking realistic, like shot damage or something like that. I like being able to like kind of have panic attempts to try and get my way out of the situation if I can. So okay, somebody's saying start on Blood Money. Okay, another person's saying I should start on Contracts. All right. Or Silent Assassin with gameplay. All right, well, maybe I'll watch playthroughs of the previous ones and then start. I'm not even sure which one of those comes first. Probably Blood Money. But no, I like it thematically, though. The just sort of very clinical approach to the intense approach to it. You know. I have not played Blueprints. I mean, I might eventually if I really want a puzzle game, but it's not just the gameplay; it's also like the theme of it. I don't know. It depends on how mysterious the game is for me to kind of draw me in. Uh, if you manage to make the movie, I will. I will. Would you be against people using AI to modify it, be it changing the frame rate, art style, or even dialogue? Frame rate, I don't care if people want to have their own version of it. Art style, they could, but they should expect to get a reaction similar to DLSS 5. And dialogue, well, as long as it's like real obvious they're changing things, I don't care. You know, if people want to screw around with it, I don't have a problem with it. As long with that sort of thing, it's like as long as people know where the original is and they can watch it, then you know, mission accomplished. So I'm not picky about people doing stuff after the fact. Oh, any more funny stories about your friend from school who found out he was colorblind? Not that I remember. I wasn't like best friends with him. I just sort of knew him through class, and he was like, he was like good friends with like another friend of mine, but not that I really remember. He definitely did some drugs. Like I remember in a psychology class at one point we were talking about different substances, and they split it up by I think like sections which ones you were covering. So there was one on alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and I think he was in the group of what they called like stupid kid drugs. So like you know stuff like huffing paint or sniffing glue or other things like that. You know, he was generally a pretty chill guy. Yeah. If you could revive one multiplayer game that's currently unavailable to play, oh, I don't know. Let's see. Well, what game would that be? Well, I guess a cheat answer that would probably make the most amount of people happy, and I'm also interested in, would be whatever the cut content was for Destiny 2. Because I think that game's gorgeous, and I want that game to be preserved 100%. Uh, and that would probably make a lot of people happy that if they did that. Personally, I'm kind of interested in Darkfall and Holy Wars, but I think there's kind of like a proof of concept emulator for it where I might be able to see some of the content. But What's another one that stuff that's like just gone? Because the Crew's come back, so because that was certainly at the top of the list. I mean, one of the tops of the list. Yeah, the games I most want to keep are ones that are still kind of puttering along. They're like at risk titles. I think. See, I'm drawing a blank because I'm okay. Multiplayer can come back. That's like dead. I'd have to. Here, let's pull up the dead games list. Wiki. Okay. Organize it by state of dead. I'm sure I can get a couple more entries, but see, I don't remember all these at the top of my head. Okay. Well, I mean, it's not like a top tier entry, but I was sort of curious about Nosgoth. And I guess technically it counts Darkspore. Oh no, that's it. Number one, Anthem. Because I realize Anthem's not everybody's favorite game, but that has so much production value behind it, and I never got a chance to play it. And yeah, I'm interested in checking out that world. I think there was like a proof of concept for it that that like they got inside of it, but not much was running. But yeah, Anthem would, I think, it'd have to be the top entry. That and Destiny 2 DLC content. Yeah, so there were ones I was curious about, but people said they weren't that good. Like there was something, like something Babylon, wasn't there? Yeah, Babylon's Fall, but I think that one looked interesting, but I think people were saying it wasn't that good. Oh, actually, when I was talking with Josh in Brussels, he was mentioning that game, that MMO he likes. There was something like, oh, what the hell was it called? Other Life or Other World or something. I had been kind of curious about that one independently, and then I hadn't even realized they had gotten shut down. Let's see. Is Black Prophecy good? I can't remember that one. Well, Black Prophecy certainly looks interesting. So yeah. Yeah, there's multiple options. I'm trying to think of. Well, I mean, several have come back by fans themselves too, so. Okay, well, I shouldn't just keep scrolling as while everybody's tuning in here. Let's see. Yeah, see, like I kind of see this as a progression. Somebody says, "Oh, they vote. Is Brink not possible for multiplayer anymore?" Can you connect via IP address on Brink? I thought you could. I don't know. Yeah, because I played some Brink. But I think that's what some people don't get about Stop Killing Games is it's true that most of the games that have been shut down are either not that good or were like kind of okay, or they weren't like the best. But the thing is, this is a trend. Like we're seeing more and more. There are some at-risk games that are very good and worthy of preservation. So I think some people are looking at this like, oh, well, only the games that suck get shut down. Well, that's been mostly true so far, but even then, it's not completely true. There's definitely worthy games that that could use a resurrection, and even the ones that are like, okay, there could be a lot of interesting aspects to them. I mean, I don't think anyone's questioning my credibility that I'm interested in games that are far from perfect but have something fascinating about them. Like, I think people can believe me when I say that, like, yeah, that my interest in that is genuine. So I'm worried about the trajectory of this, especially. I mean, again, most of the games I'm worried about are ones that are still active, like The Secret World. I mean, I can't imagine, like, somebody making the argument that that game just sucks and it's not worth playing. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're either ignorant or you're being obtuse. Even if you're not into that kind of game, the sheer volume of content and the effort put behind it should let anybody know that, like, okay, this is a game, obviously a lot of effort went into this. Even if it's not to your taste at all. And I think I'm decent at assessing that about other games. Like, even if it's not my kind of game at all, like, I can see where somebody who might be really interested in this. So yeah, it's okay. Well, I should move on. More questions. Uh, Getting towards the end. Oh, have there been any good multiplayer games that you were interested in but weren't sure to buy in case it would stop service entirely? And they're saying for them it's no more room in hell too. Yeah, I mean, most multiplayer now for me, it's like that. It's like, well, do I really want to sink a lot of time into this knowing it could just be rug pulled on me? And most of the time the answer is no. It has to be just overwhelmingly appealing to me to break ranks on that. Yeah, the better question would be more the opposite. Like, which ones did I find that cave in regardless? Again, those would be ones like the Secret World or the Crew. The theory that I'm replaced by mold. Well, quite the opposite. I feel like I have less mold on me now that I've moved out of that apartment. So, do you have any thoughts on the general sentiment that we own nothing increasing and the encroachment of techno-fascism with the rise of AI-powered surveillance and age verification on the OS level? Yeah, that's nuts. I really don't like that, but any intersection with Stop Killing Games' potential success and mission. Look, if we get, I could be wrong, but I think if we can get what we're asking for with Stop Killing Games, I think that's going to be one of the. Maybe I'm overinflating it. I don't mean to be. I think it could be one of the biggest pushbacks against the you will own nothing mentality we're seeing from some companies. It's hardly going to solve it on a larger scale, but maybe that gives some inspiration or can kind of shift over to window in the right direction then. Because if we get what we're asking for, then games are largely going to stop being destroyed, I think. I mean, yeah, there's some people saying, oh, they just won't release in the EU. There could be a couple, but I think it'll be just a temporary thing. And the business sense is just going to gravitate towards, let's make a lot of money and do this thing that doesn't cost that much and then be open to a market of, hundreds of millions of people that we wouldn't have otherwise. Especially when there'll be competition that will do that even if they don't want to. And if that happens, I think over time, the only games that will just straight up lose will be ones where the company is so mismanaged it goes bankrupt and nobody picks up the IP. Actually, if they pick up the IP, I'm not sure how that works, but they may or may not be liable. It depends. Or the other ones would be in games that are just completely regional. Like if it was only released in China or only released in South Korea or something. Then, yeah, if they were never planning on selling in the EU anyway, then obviously it won't affect any of those. Whereas, I mean, we're seeing a large encroachment on, with stuff like planned obsolescence or trying to turn what used to be products into services. Yeah, I think everybody hates it. So showing that it's possible, in our case at least, to push back could help. Yeah, with this ID stuff, like what I was mentioned with Google earlier, like probably the best people to ask on that with the OS would be Linux developers, because Linux has long had the reputation of, having freedom with how you want to run it and being able to tune everything. If they're being asked to have age verification, so far it's just in California, which only has so much weight. But man, this age verification just seems to be. I think some people have been researching where it's coming from. I'm not. I'm not sure, but it does feel extremely coordinated. That we're seeing like this, combo punch of like censorship and age verification all coming out in multiple countries at once. I mean, we've been having to claw our way up on Stop Killing Games, where this one just kind of felt like bam, bam, bam. So it's probably somebody saying Zuckerberg. Yeah, maybe. What's the benefit of that to him directly though? My wife's knocking on the door, so I should probably wrap it up soon. But okay, everybody's saying Meta Zuckerberg. I'm surprised that it would connect to them. I mean, I'm I guess it's not obvious to me what the business model is that helps them so much, but maybe there's Meta is certainly not against making bad decisions. Like I still think everything with the metaverse is insane the way they did it, and it's just incredibly costly. What's the number now? Is it like 80 billion or something? How much is Meta spent on metaverse? And I say this as someone who's okay, 77 billion or 80. Okay, this one's saying they didn't lose 80 billion. That's not exactly true. Okay, well maybe they still spent tens of billions just wasted on that. I have no idea how you would even do that. You know, because what the new Grand Theft Auto? I think I heard some budget estimate of like 1 or 2 billion. Red Dead Redemption 2 is 500 million. I mean, it doesn't look like 50 or 100 Red Dead Redemption 2s in terms of production value. So yeah, I don't know what I don't. Well, okay, so if people are saying it's meta, I don't know what their thought process is, but I don't like it as someone who is over 18. So I don't think this helps. And like unless it was like actual like adult or shocking content, then this seems just so. This seems like a power grab, is what it feels like. So I don't think it has anything to do with or very little. I'm sure there's some. I wouldn't call them useful idiots because they could genuinely believe it for their own reasons, but I'm sure there's a few people who actually are concerned about it, but I think that's a small minority. I think most people don't want this, and they're getting blindsided by a few powerful interests that really do want it, and it's for some sort of power reason. But I hope Linux manages to worm its way out of this, because I mean, I just think it's insane, especially for the OS. Okay. What do you think are lame mechanics for a hard mode difficulty? Well, what would you like to see? Well, I mentioned the Alan Wake, just bullet sponges. What I like to see typically are more enemies or smarter enemies. Those are the best. I guess if they have inhuman aim, that's kind of lame too. Or just like straight up cheating, like with racing game. Yeah, like you saw with, it's a lot of racing games really. It's not just Polaris Snowcross, but where they're, where you have rubber banding to the point of just ridiculousness. And if I remember, I'll put some good clips of those in the YouTube description of other good clips I've seen for just over the top rubber banding. Yeah, or I think in like strategy games, sometimes they let the AI cheat and just have more resources than you do, or there's things like that, or can do like an inhuman number of commands. But yeah, the best way is like more enemies and more smarter enemies. Yeah. Or sometimes if it's like a boss attack, then like the hard mode has like 3 more attacks on top of the main one, you know, that you have to dodge, stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, somebody's asking something that'll be in the follow-up, so I'm skipping that. I have played the original Red Faction. Do you see us ending up in that situation? Should we ever reach Mars? I mean, probably not. I think, one, I think it's an open question if we ever do make it to Mars in any sort of permanent capacity. I'm sure we could send a person there if we really wanted to, but a sustainable colony, that might never happen. But if it did, I think it would be like a really kind of tenuous survival situation. Yeah, it would be kind of like that book I started reading, like, yeah, that prequel to Rama that just went insane in a bad way. What was it? Bright? I forget what it was called. It's like the first prequel to Rama. It started off with like a Mars colony survival situation, which sounded good, but then it just went off the deep end and was just focusing on really just obnoxious stuff. Do you attend many sci-fi or gaming cons? No, I've barely been to any. Though there's one my wife wants us to go to later, and I don't know if she wants me announcing which one or not because of the attention. If she does, I'll mention it later. No, I didn't see it. What are some media recommendations you'd send a younger version of yourself? Jeez, I have no idea. I'd have to think about what. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of looking at similar stuff. There's some shifts, but my taste haven't like drastically shifted since when I was younger, like a late teenager, that sort of thing. Okay, I'm on the last question. Put like 3 equals marks before the questions or something, and I'll try and answer some live ones. What do you think about storytelling approach used by Hideo Kojima? Reality with a mix of sci-fi fantasy and this kind of setting where everyone can feel like they can relate to characters, but they are fantastical at the same time. I like it, but I don't always like how Kojima handles it. Though I'm not an expert, though. I mean, I watched through full playthrough of Death Stranding, and some of it I thought was cool. Others of it, it's like getting real dramatic in ways I felt like didn't really add much for my taste. And that's another one where I feel like I wouldn't have mind. I feel like the game never really raised my expectations to expect some answer at the end of it, but I still would have liked some more answers as to like what the hell's going on. But I think that can work. Like, there's definitely aspects of it I like. I like some level of grounding to it, which he kind of has. But yeah, no, I think that definitely has potential. But I do like something kind of coherent, I guess. So go as crazy as you want, but like, give me some clues as to what's going on. You don't have to explain everything, but like I kind of want to feel like I better understand the world by the end of it. Where if I'm just still lost at the end, then you know, I don't know, has less appeal to me. If you watch video game playthroughs, do you prefer Let's Plays, streams, or footage with no commentary? What is a game which you watch outside your preferred method of watching? Okay, well, I mean, it kind of depends. I'm usually watching stuff with no commentary, or I'm not really that worried about the commentary because I'm just there to find. Sometimes commentary are the only ways you get the ending of the game. Sometimes. If it's really entertaining, I'm happy to watch one with commentary. In fact, I wanted to go back, since people told me about it either on the stream or elsewhere, that there was the original version of Spoony One's Final Fantasy VIII video. I never finished that. I wanted to go back and watch it. And there's a version on archive.org that has his original music and everything. So it fits together better than the kind of cut version he had to, edited version he had to make of it. And let's see, but yeah, it just depends. I'm usually if I'm watching if I'm watching a playthrough, it's because I just have no interest in the gameplay, but I'm intrigued by the world or the story and just want to see what happens for the rest of it. So yeah, I still have paranoia that someday they'll try to outlaw playthroughs or because they feel like it's encroaching. There was talk about that from some developer a while back. I forget which one. It was a couple of years back. I'm just thinking, no, please don't do this. Like he like didn't. He was saying that they need to be paying them for them. I mean, it's like I think most publishers understand this is usually free advertising for them. You know, if people get excited about a playthrough and they're like, "Oh, this game looks really fun. I want to." Because I'm sure there's people who have started watching playthroughs and are thinking, "Okay, this looks too cool. I just want to play it." So it just keeps gives them more attention. You know, like especially if somebody, let's say they just see one scene they think looks cool of a game they've never heard of, then that's advertising. So last year asked what a quest was in Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind which stayed with you. You not have an answer. Do you have an idea of a quest that really grabbed you now that you have more time to think about it? Oh, well, I mentioned this. It's just because it's more. It's probably not best quest ever, but it's one just more recent because I was thinking about it late. I was just doing some tests. I've played through the original, but not the DLC of the Outer Worlds. I was doing some testing it in VR because I was testing it in the Unreal Injector, which it looks great in that, but very demanding. I can't run it at full speed. I was also testing Vorpex and Depth 3D and Geo11 on it. So I was just using it as a test game to test differences. And I was talking about it with a friend of mine. The one quest I remember more than any other in that game was there was this woman who feels like she's jealous that these people like on the lower caste system are kind of, some of them kind of win these lotteries when they retire, and they go to this place where it's so good that they never come back, and she thinks that's totally unfair that the upper class doesn't get to go there too. And I don't want to spoil too much, but you can probably take a guess at where that goes. I'm sure there's some better quests. Yeah, this is a good question to submit, and I'll try and think about it again if it gets more votes. So, feel free to skip if too serious. Any thoughts about the Iran war you haven't heard being expressed? No, I mean, I'm not an expert on it at all. It sounds insane what we're doing. So, but it sounds like it's too late now. And people were talking about like the hyper depression earlier. As I understand it, they're being extremely shrewd tactically. Iran is with how they're handling it. Again, I'm not an expert at all though. So it sounds like we may have just crashed the world economy and just we don't know it yet. You know, interesting times ahead. So, so I'm saying I live in New York. Oh, okay, it's like a reply to one. I live in New York, tri-state area, and I want to travel somewhere for my birthday. This somewhere on a $1,000 budget. Any recommendations? Well, I'm not expert. I mean, I've been to New York City. I haven't really been to other places in New York. I guess look it up. I mean, even New York City, I don't remember places where it's like, oh, you've got to go there. I mean, yeah, it's impressive as far as a huge city, seeing stuff like the Empire State Building or other skyscrapers and monuments. I was kind of visiting areas from Davis X when I was there. Like, so I saw Battery Park and Statue of Liberty, Hell's Kitchen, but You don't really have to go to Hell's Kitchen. But yeah, this is gonna. Well, I don't really want to end it talking about the war, but let's see. Was there any other? Let me backtrack some questions. Do one more, unless people have another good live one. Recommendations. Okay, recommendations for. I missed these. What are your thoughts on extraction shooters on the recently released Marathon? I haven't played a lot of. I've only played like a little bit of extraction shooters. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like really my favorite style. I think my favorite style for like kind of like multiplayer twist are like sort of like your attack and defend modes, where you have like one side's all defense, the other side's all offense, and they're trying to hold a point, and the other side's trying to take it. I really like that gameplay style a lot. Extraction shooter isn't my thing as much. Thematically, Arc Raiders and maybe Marathon look like they could be really cool, but I don't know. I'm not rushing out to buy it. Again, knowing that companies can rug pull stuff really kind of kills my enthusiasm. You know, because I'm sure like the big budget ones, they're going to keep them running. Even if they don't do well, they're probably going to keep them going for like a year probably. But even then, let's say I really like it and there's still like a small community of people want to play it. Like I don't like having, I've grown up games being something I can play them as long as I want to. So the thought that like, now I have to be on a schedule and it can be taken away, screw that. I mean, yeah, players can move on, but if you really like a game, you might be able to find some friends who will play it with you, you know? So, let's see. So some recommendations for Halloween Game Dungeon. What do you want to receive them so fresh but not too close to your deadline? You can send them whenever. I have a category on my email I sort for Game Dungeon recommendations. What's a food you can be woken up for and be content? Imagine being late at night and your wife pokes you awake. Which meal would be worth being a bit groggy? I feel like you have something more in mind than I do. I've generally been trying to get in this habit where I don't eat as soon as I get up. I wait a few hours till I'm like real hungry. Is there any way to save the forums if Discord and Reddit require Face ID in the future? They could come back if there's enough of a demand for it. I feel like just not enough people were using it. But yeah, I heard Discord might be doing that too. I forgot. I guess we can see where do the masses go. Maybe it's another optional. So yeah, it's not that the forum will never ever come back. It's just I feel like it's not really worth it for like the time investment, number of people using it. Again, if I or the viewers were super invested in it, we would find a way to keep it going. But any good books you've recently read? I'm finishing one called Robots of Gotham. It's not Batman related. It's about this kind of future geopolitical society where AIs have they're sentient, but they're kind of competing on similar terms as humans, and some governments have moved to AI, others it's kind of mixed. And like they have this whole future history thing. It's kind of interesting. It wouldn't make a bad movie. And I'm drawing a blank on what I read before that. Geez. It's really maybe I don't know if this is like something that's normal or maybe it's a problem with my brain, where like I'll play a game or read a book and move on to something else, and it's just like if I try to remember what I read before that, it's like I have no clue. But then if I'm prompted, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this and all these elements of that or something. So yeah, I guess if somebody thinks I might be developing brain damage, you can let me know. That might be a good way to end this on. Favorite movie? I don't have just one. I mean, there's so many. Some of my favorites are I love the Dawn of the Dead remake. The Thing. Let's see. What are some Shawshank Redemption? Comedies like Used Cars, The Blues Brothers. What's another really funny movie? I'm just drawing a blank. I mean, there's so many good movies. Somebody's saying Evil Dead. I like Evil Dead. I wouldn't say it's my favorite though. It has a lot going for it. Oh yeah, well, yeah for horror Return of the Living Dead. Evil Dead 2 is way up there. What's yeah Return. I love Return of the Living Dead. I was talking earlier about like I can't think of any game that's perfect. I cannot think of one thing to improve upon Return of the Living Dead. Like I wouldn't change a damn thing. Like it's that's definitely my kind of sense of humor. Yeah, I've seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I thought it was just kind of okay. Uh, let's see. Okay, well, again, I could go on a long time. I like more than just horror stuff too. It's just that's just what's coming to mind. All right, some sort of Stop Killing Games announcement almost certainly next week. I'm not sure how much it's going to contain. It could contain big news. It's hard to say. Some of the stuff I still don't have the information on. Then Freeman's Mind as soon as possible. I'll be working on Freeman's Mind pretty much every spare moment I have in between there. And then get that out as soon as I can. And then Game Dungeon, which is going to take longer because there's going to be a lot in the follow-up. So I kind of wish I could just skip the follow-up again and just go straight to another regular episode, but I know there's a growing number of people who are going to be pissed at me if I do that, so I'm going to do it. So, somebody is asking a question that's been answered in a Game Dungeon episode, so you watch Game Dungeon if you want the answer. All right, I think it was answered in I think it was answered in State of Mind. I think that's the one that got answered in. Okay, I'll see you. More coming. Sorry I'm so swamped, but I really am doing a lot. So, later.